Welcome in, everyone. There we go. All right. Welcome in, everyone. Hey, Stardust City Hags reporting for duty. Good. So am I. Reporting for today's news. We got a good one coming up. No homework, but we got lots of reading. Hey, Bishonen in a Box, welcome in. How are you doing? Hope y'all are doing well. It is Thursday, April 16th, 2026. Year of Our Lord. Oh, speaking of Year of Our Lord, we need to kind of real quick want to cover um JD Vance and the Pope because JD Vance is being a bad Christian. I mean, being a bad Catholic. Um Here we go. Here we go.
Vice President J.D. Vance now warning the Pope to, quote, be careful. What Vance was talking about as President Trump lashes out against Pope Leo. And tonight on the Hill, the leading Republican in the Senate now saying the focus should be on the economy, gas prices, and not going after the Pope. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, the backlash after Vice President J.D. Vance told Pope Leo, the spiritual leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics, he needs to be careful when talking about matters of theology.
I think that it's important, in the same way that it's important for the Vice President of the United States to be careful when I talk about matters of public policy, I think it's very, very important for the Pope to be careful when he talks about matters of theology.
The Pope has spoken out.
Wow, he said, he said, stay in your lane. That's terrible. He said, Pope Leo, even though I gave you a Chicago Bears jersey that says Pope Leo on it, you need to stay in your lane, homie. That's crazy. JD Vance is a fake Catholic. Fake Catholic. I'm calling it now. I'm a fake Catholic myself, but you know what? JD Vance is a faker Catholic than me.
During the war on Iran, criticizing President Trump's rhetoric about destroying a civilization. Declaring on Palm Sunday, Jesus does not listen to the prayers of those who wage war, but rejects them. Vance, who converted to Catholicism in 2019, takes issue with that.
Fake
was God on the
Catholic
side of
for
the
only
Americans
6
who liberated
years.
Holocaust camps and liberated those innocent people from, those who had survived the Holocaust? I certainly think the answer is yes.
The vice president doubling down on his criticism of the American Pope.
If you're going to opine on matters of theology, you've got to be careful. You've got to make sure it's anchored in the truth.
Tonight, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops pushing back, saying when Pope Leo XIV speaks as supreme pastor of the Universal Church, he's not merely offering opinions on theology, he is preaching the gospel.
Literally.
The Pope himself had nothing.
It's like if JD Vance actually was a Catholic child and was forced to go to Catholicism class so that way he could get his Eucharist and if I'm sure he did all this before he was going to get married and stuff because I think he's married in the Catholic Church. But like had he done all of this as a kid, he would not be questioning the words of the Pope. Because when I was a child and I went to Catholicism class and I had, in preparation to take to receive the Eucharist and the body and blood of Christ, my teachers straight up told me the Pope is literally the mouth of God. Well, the direct, most closest thing on earth to be the voice of God. And I can't believe JD Vance, a Catholic of 7 years, is saying, yeah, you know what? The Pope shouldn't be talking on that. That's crazy. Where does the caucasity, I don't know if he was like Protestant before, but the prodacity. This is not how Catholics behave. Catholics will wait for, whatever. But it's a very like American Christian type of behavior to be like, well, actually, my word is the best word. No, that's not how we do it in Catholicism.
Thing to say about the vice president's comments. He was in Algeria, an overwhelmingly Muslim country, where he visited a mosque.
Although we have different beliefs, we have different ways of worshiping, we have different ways of living, we can live together in peace.
The Pope calling that message something the world needs to hear today. Back here in Washington, many lawmakers, including some Republicans, are not happy with what the president and the vice president have been saying about the Pope. In fact, the top Republican in the Senate with this message to the administration saying focus on the pocketbook issues and, quote, let the church be the church, David.
Rachel Scott at the White House tonight. Thank you, Rachel.
Wow. There's this other video. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. There we go.
Earlier today, I made a video that I did not want to make, and tonight I'm making a second one.
Hold on. This man, I do not know who he is. I don't know any of his videos. I know that his YouTube channel is called Capturing Catholicism. I look at him and I can make many assumptions, but we are not going to make those assumptions right now. We are just going to look at this man as a potential, as a critique of JD Vance. Okay? Okay. Let's watch this. I think it's good.
I really didn't want to make this one either, but JD Vance said something on Fox News earlier this evening and was asked directly about Trump's post and the image. And what he said was, in my view, a profound failure of Catholic witness at exactly the moment when Catholic witness was most needed. I want to be upfront about something before we go any further. I look up to JD Vance in all sorts of ways. I think he's brilliant. I think his conversion.
Okay. So there you go. Homie says he looks up to JD Vance. That is all the assumptions we need to make right there. All right. I judged a book by its cover, and I was right. But let's hear him for his words.
The story is compelling, and there is absolutely no way that I could do a better job at being vice president of the United States. But I'm also a Catholic convert, and that really, really means.
Bro, I'm sorry. He just said he's also a Catholic convert. Why are the Catholic converts the ones that ride hardest for Catholicism? I don't know. It's weird. It's just giving evangelical Christians, and evangelical Christians don't always feel genuine to me. But that's a discussion for a later day. Let's continue with this critique.
Something to me. And what he said earlier tonight on national television matters for every Catholic in this country. So let's talk about it. Now, I can't play you the Fox News clip that this comes from because they'll copyright flag the video, but I want to give you his exact words so you can evaluate them for yourself. Bret Baier asked him directly how he, as a Catholic, considers Trump's Truth Social post and the image that many people interpreted as the president depicting himself as Jesus. Here's exactly what Vance said. He said, quote, I think the president was posting a joke, and noted that Trump took it down because people weren't understanding his humor. He said Trump, quote, likes to mix it up on social media, and that being unfiltered is, quote, one of the good things about this president. Then Baier pressed him on the broader conflict with the Vatican, and here's the key line. Vance said, quote, I think in some cases it would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of, what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the President of the United States stick to dictating American public policy, end quote. He then called the whole thing not particularly newsworthy and said, quote, I don't worry about it too much. That was his response. No defense of the Pope's authority, no acknowledgement of the blasphemous nature of the image, no pushback on Trump's claim that the College of Cardinals elected Leo as a political move, just the Pope.
Sorry, right now is on screen is the picture Donald Trump posted where he is pretending to be a quote-unquote doctor, wearing a red cape and having his only medical device is apparently the Holy Spirit. Sorry, it's just I feel like this was finally the turning point for all of these religious people. This picture, this was it. This is what did it for conservatives all around the world. They were like, yup, he pretended to be Jesus. I'm out. That's what they said. It was this picture, not him holding the Bible upside down, not him never going to church, not him on his third freaking marriage, not him on, does he even pray? He doesn't even, I remember there was a clip of him where someone asked him, what's your favorite Bible verse, or what's your favorite book of the Bible, right? He was like, all of them. I like all of them. It's so stupid. But this is it. This is what did it for conservatives. And I don't even think it's the him pretending to be Jesus. It's the weird AI stuff in the background that really did it, because it's the American flag, the weird angels coming down from the sky that look like soldiers but also transformers, but also it's so weird. It's just straight up a mech. There's a mech angel coming down to protect Donald Trump, and it's just this is what did it. This was the last straw for all of these people. Homie here, I don't even know what his name is. Mr. Capturing Catholicism here says he looks up to JD Vance, and this was the final straw for him. It's crazy.
Did Leo as a political move, just The Pope should handle church stuff. The president handles policy. Disagreements happen, not a big deal. Now, I want to explain why this is a much bigger deal than Vance wants you to think it is. Let's start with the most important line. It would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality and let the president stick to dictating American public policy. Now, that sounds very reasonable on the surface, right? Separation of church and state, stay in your lane, very American.
Interesting.
But think about what Vance is actually saying here for more than 5 seconds, and it falls apart completely. What was Pope Leo speaking about? He was speaking about whether it is morally acceptable to threaten to destroy an entire civilization. Okay, he was speaking about the killing of civilians, including children, in a school that was struck by a missile. He was calling for peace in a war that the president of the USCCB, the military archbishop, and multiple cardinals have all questioned under Catholic just war doctrine. In what universe is that not a matter of morality? Vance is unfortunately trying to draw a line between morality and public policy as if those are two separate things. But the entire Catholic intellectual tradition, the tradition that Vance and I both chose to embrace, insists that they are not separate. Catholic social teaching exists precisely because moral principles apply to public life. That's like literally the whole point.
Yep.
War is a moral question. Immigration is a moral question. The treatment of civilians is a moral question. You don't get to say the Pope handles morality and the president handles policy when the policy in question is whether to annihilate a civilization.
Yes.
The morality is the
Which is-
policy question. But here's what makes this very frustrating coming from someone like me. Vance knows this. His entire political identity is built on the integration of Catholic moral conviction with public policy. He's talked about how his faith shapes his views on family, on community, on technology, on the dignity of work. He wrote a book about the collapse of social solidarity in American life and has explicitly connected that to religious and moral frameworks. So J.D. Vance believes that Catholic morality should inform public policy when it's about the things that he cares about. But when the Pope applies Catholic morality to a war, suddenly the Vatican should just stay in its lane.
Yeah.
That is not a principled position. That's just convenience.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about the image. Okay, Vance repeated Trump's own defense, which is that the image was meant to depict him as a doctor somehow, and that only fake news could interpret it as Jesus.
Wow.
I addressed this in today's earlier video, and I won't belabor the point, but I want to note that J.D. Vance personally endorsed this defense. He called it a joke and said that Trump took it down because people weren't understanding his humor. Vance went through RCIA.
Such BS.
He was received into the Catholic Church. He presumably has at least a basic understanding of Christian iconography. Look at the image again. Okay, a man in robes laying his hands on the sick, divine light radiating from his hands, heavenly figures descending in golden clouds, a woman praying or maybe even worshiping, a nurse looking on in awe. This is not a doctor. Okay, that is obviously Christ. Everyone knows it's Christ.
I'm glad that we said this. I'm glad that we all established that this is a Christ-like image. Okay? I don't know how Trump could say it was me being a doctor. That's a little kid ass excuse. Okay? And if you want to support a president that makes little kid ass excuses, then this is your guy. But you know what? We didn't have to make little kid excuses for Joe Biden. We didn't have to make little kid excuses for freaking Kamala Harris, We didn't have to make little kid excuses for Obama. But you know what? It's like all of a sudden, okay, J.D. Vance says, oh, well, it's just a joke, bro. It's just a joke. Okay, he shouldn't have done that, but it's a joke. No, it's not a joke, okay? This is a man who literally says he wishes he could be Pope. But they can't make a Pope out of someone who's not even a priest, right? But he's like, I can be Pope. I can get the Nobel Peace Prize. And it's like, no, brother, no. You are the fake news. You have always been the fake news. And I'm so sick and tired of Trump's gaslighting and all of the MAGA gaslighting. This is the fake news. This right here is the fake news. Donald Trump posting that he is Jesus to America. That's the fake news. And I'm glad. I know I was complaining earlier about conservatives and Christians and Catholics finally drawing the line now. But oh my God, how much would it have taken? Like it would have been like had the second coming of Jesus come today, and he would have been like, "Yep, we need to get rid of Trump." I swear to God, there would be so many quote unquote Christians that would be like, "No, this is a fake Jesus because Trump is saying it's not real." And it's like this is exactly what we were taught in the Bible. This is what we were warned about.
Trump knows it's Christ. Vance knows it's Christ.
False prophets.
The only
Thank
people
you.
pretending otherwise are people who need it to not be Christ for political reasons. As a Catholic, Vance had an obligation in that moment to say something very simple. He could have said something like, I think the president's post was in poor taste and depicting any political leader in the role of Christ is inappropriate. That's not very hard to say. It doesn't require you to break ties with the president. It doesn't require a theological treatise. It's just basic Christian seriousness.
Okay, but the thing that homie here is not questioning is what if JD Vance came out and said, "Hey Donald, that was bad and you shouldn't have done it." How do you think Donald Trump would react? He would have had a full-on hissy fit, you know? He would have been like, they're trying to take away my power. JD Vance is another Mike Pence. Lock him up. Like, this is, but I don't have any sympathy for JD Vance, Marco Rubio, anyone in the Trump administration. They knew that this was coming. There's no way that they didn't know that this crazy man, you know, who literal professors and, you know, experts in this field are saying that Donald Trump does not have the mental faculties to be president right now, to execute the office of the president, or whatever the heck the language is in the Constitution. Like, and all these conservatives, all these Republicans are just okay with him being in power still. And it's like this is going to harm the Republican Party for a long time. And they are, I guess, don't care right now.
Instead, he laundered it as humor, and in doing so, he told millions of Christians watching Fox News that there's nothing wrong with a political leader posting himself as Christ as long as he says that he was joking afterward. I want to flag something that I think went mostly unnoticed, but is actually one of the most significant things that Vance said here. When he described the Vatican's role, he framed it as though the Pope is essentially a denominational administrator. He handles morality. He handles what's going on in the Catholic Church. And then the president handles the real world. This is not a Catholic understanding of the papacy.
No.
This is frankly like a Protestant ecclesiology coming out of the mouth of a Catholic convert on national television.
There you go. He called them out. He said he's a Protestant convert or a Catholic. Sorry, I don't know. I want to be like P to C transition. But he was a Protestant to Catholic, you know, so he's a trans Catholic. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be making these trans jokes this early.
Leo is not the CEO of Catholic Incorporated. He is the universal pastor of the church with the authority and the obligation to speak on matters of faith and morals as they intersect with every domain of human life. That includes war. That includes the treatment of the vulnerable. That includes the question of whether it's acceptable to threaten to wipe out a civilization. This isn't some like radical expansion of papal authority. Okay? This is what popes have always done. John the 23rd wrote Possum and Terrace about war and peace in the nuclear age. John Paul II wrote relentlessly about the moral dimensions of communism, of capitalism, and the Iraq War. Benedict XVI wrote about the moral obligations of economic systems. This is not new. This is the job.
We need to read
when
some
Vance
of these,
says the Vatican should stick
popes talking about economic systems and communism and capitalism. That sounds really interesting.
To church matters and leave policy to the president, he's functionally saying that the Pope's authority stops where American political power begins. That's not Catholicism. That's the assertion that the state defines the boundaries of the church's moral voice, rather than the other way around. Now, let me be clear about something here. I'm not saying that the Pope gets to dictate American policy. Of course, he does not get to do that. There's a legitimate distinction between the church's moral teaching and the prudential application of that teaching to specific policy questions. Yeah. Reasonable Catholics can disagree about immigration policy, about the best path to peace, about strategic questions. That's all fine. But that's not what's happening here. The Pope said it's unacceptable to threaten to destroy a civilization. That's not a prudential policy disagreement. That's a foundational moral claim. And Vance's response was to tell the Pope to stay in his lane.
That's
now, look,
crazy.
I want to be gentle about this, but I also
Don't
I
be
feel the
gentle.
need to be direct.
You don't need to be gentle just because you like JD Vance and look up to him. You are in the best position to be his greatest critic, homie. Let it out. Let it out.
And I want to speak to this as a fellow convert. Look, I know what it's like to go through RCIA. I know what it's like to wrestle with the claims of the Catholic Church and ultimately decide that they're true. I know what it's like to be asked whether you believe and profess all that the Holy Catholic Church believes, teaches, and proclaims to be revealed by God. And I know what it's like to say yes, knowing that yes is going to cost you something. One of the things that you accept when you enter into the Catholic Church is the authority of the Pope to teach on faith and morals, not just when it's comfortable, not just when it happens to align with your prior commitments, precisely when it challenges you. That's what makes it authority rather than advice. This was essentially Vance's first major public test as a Catholic under real pressure. The president he serves attacked the Pope, posted himself as Christ, claimed credit for the Pope's election, and Vance was asked about it on national television. He could have said something extremely diplomatic, like,
Yep.
look, I have enormous respect for the Holy Father and his moral witness, and I think we can have good faith disagreements on policy while maintaining that respect. That would have cost him nothing. It would have been very diplomatic. It would have been honoring both his role as vice president and his identity as a Catholic. Instead,
But would Donald Trump approve that? And that's the ultimate question here. This is Donald Trump's presidency. Would Donald Trump approve JD Vance saying those things?
unfortunately, he chose the president over the Pope. Not in a nuanced way, not in a way that balanced competing obligations. He simply pretended the whole thing was no big deal, endorsed the joke defense, and told the Pope to stay in his lane. I don't say this to condemn him, okay? I pray for JD Vance. The position he's in is genuinely difficult, and I have compassion for the pressure he must be under with all of this. I could not do his job. Let me say that again. I could not do what he does. But compassion for the difficulty of a situation doesn't mean we can't name what happened. Now, I want to say something that I think Vance's political advisors should be telling him if they aren't already. JD Vance is obviously going to run for president. Everyone knows this. And when he does, he's going to need Catholic voters. There are over 50 million Catholics in this country, me included. They are the quintessential swing vote in American politics. And what Vance said last night is on tape. In a future primary, a Catholic opponent can literally just play this clip and say, when the president attacked the Holy Father, JD Vance said that it wasn't even newsworthy.
Yeah.
In a general election, this clip becomes an ad about character and conviction. It's a 30-second spot that literally just writes itself. But here's the thing, and this is really important. I'm not making a cynical argument. I'm making the opposite type of argument. I'm saying that in this case, doing the right thing as a Catholic and doing the smart thing as a future presidential candidate point in exactly the same direction. A measured statement affirming respect for the Pope while acknowledging policy disagreements would have cost Vance nothing politically. It would have strengthened his standing with Catholic voters. Again, voters like me. And it would have been the truth. The fact that he couldn't manage even that tells you how powerful the pressure to conform was in this moment. And that should concern all of us. And look, on the very same day that Vance gave this interview on Fox News, Archbishop Coakley, the president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, said this. He said he was disheartened that the president chose to write such disparaging words about the Pope. And then he said, quote, Pope Leo is not his rival, nor is the Pope a politician.
Yeah.
He is the vicar of Christ who speaks from the truth of the gospel and for the care of souls. That's it. That's all that Vance had to say. One sentence. The Pope is not a politician. He is the vicar of Christ.
But again, like I said, that would be going against Donald Trump, who already is like beefing with the Pope on a personal level. You know, Donald Trump was like, the Pope was only elected Pope because they wanted an American Pope to challenge American Donald Trump. And it's like, no, brother, it's not about you. Nothing is about you, Donald. The only thing about you is the Epstein files, and you don't even want to go there. So stop trying to make the Catholic Church and the Pope about you. It's not about you.
But Vance couldn't do it, or maybe wouldn't do it. And the distance between what Coakley
That's it.
said
He wouldn't
and what
do it.
Vance said is basically the distance between a faith that holds under pressure and a faith that bends when the pressure comes. I want to be very honest about something before I close out this video. I am not a political commentator. Okay, this channel is about defending and edifying the Catholic faith. If you're subscribing because you think you're going to see a whole lot of political hot takes every week, you're going to be very sorely disappointed. Please do not subscribe for that reason. But I am a Catholic first. Before I'm a content creator, before I'm anything else, I'm Catholic. And when the vice president of the United States goes on national television and tells millions of people that the Pope should stay out of public life, that the president posting himself as Christ is a joke, and that none of this is even newsworthy, that's not politics anymore. That's a challenge to the faith that I personally profess. And I'm going to respond to it. I said at the beginning that I look up to JD Vance, and I mean that. I still mean that. His story is remarkable. His intellect is formidable. I loved watching his debates. And I believe his conversion was real.
And that's where you hit stop on the video. Thank you, Mr. Capturing Catholicism. That was a very powerful critique of JD Vance and Catholics in the conservative movement in general, I think. And I really, really look forward to seeing how people like him, the transition that they make, right? I'm curious, I'm interested in seeing where these conservative Catholics that I feel like have been trending hard to the right because that's the only type of political religion that is in America is this evangelical right. And I guess Catholics were feeling a little left out. So, they had to make their own identity politics and throw themselves in there, and they chose the right wing. And then, JD Vance and a bunch of other Catholic conservatives have been popping up, like even Candace Owens. I don't know if she's Catholic, but she was talking about turning Catholic. And same thing with Charlie Kirk. That's how I know Candace Owens was interested uh, in Catholicism, because she said her and Charlie were interested in converting to Catholicism together. And yeah, I know, sus. But it's just like, there's a whole I don't know why these evangelicals, these Christians, these Protestants, I don't know why all of a sudden it's popular to be Catholic, or if they're just like, this is the one true Christianity. It's Catholicism. I mean, it was the first Christianity. So, I don't know why there's been such a movement back to the Catholic Church. But it's really interesting, and we will keep our eyes on that. I was born Catholic, I was raised Catholic. Well into my adulthood, I was a practicing Catholic. And we will keep our, so we have a well-established knowledge, and are interested in seeing how America, a historic country that hated Catholics, so much so that when JFK was lined up to be the first Catholic president of the United States, there was a big controversy, and everyone was asking Mr. President, or Mr. John F. Kennedy, if we elect you for president, does that mean that your loyalty will automatically go to the Pope? No, no. But people were so scared of a Catholic president, because Catholicism is so well established, and they have their own state essentially in the Vatican, and they are their own political actor. So anyways, that's that. Thank you, Capturing Catholicism. He literally just popped up on my page yesterday because yeah, he's criticizing JD Vance and Donald Trump, and that is crazy. Okay. Um let's get into uh one of the main stories for today, and that is about Hassan Piker. So yesterday, uh well, first off, let's go over Hassan briefly. I've been wanting to cover him like for a while, even though I've already covered him before, but you know what I mean. I wanted to get on here and have a broadcast where we discuss Hassan. because he's been in the news for a few weeks now. He's been ever since we lost the 2024 election, Democrats lost the 2024 election, I feel like people have been asking for a Joe Rogan of the left, and it's naturally Hassan, but they don't want Hassan. So, anyways, Hassan's been doing the media rounds. He's been getting himself out there as much as he can. Uh, but one of the most interesting things was his uh, debate slash conversation, I don't know, debate slash speech at Yale. And that happened yesterday. And this is literally from the Yale News. So I'm assuming it's freaking student newspaper. But let's read this real quick. And then we'll get into watching some of the footage of him uh, at the debate. But it's just really weird because it's like, weird old timey, like Yale secret society type things, and it's just like I don't want to watch that. Okay. So by Leo Nienberg and Sarah Rivas, April 15th, yesterday, from Yale News, Hassan Piker says American empire is dying at well-attended debate. The left-wing streamer Hassan Piker, whose visit to campus drew a Republican senator's rebuke, attracted a large crowd at Yale's political union debate on Tuesday. He harshly criticized United States foreign policy. Sheffield, Sterling, Strathcona Hall was buzzing on Tuesday evening, an hour before Hassan Piker, a well-known left-wing Twitch streamer, walked up to the podium to address the Yale political union. Piker spoke in favor of the resolution End the American Empire. In his speech, he criticized U.S. immigration and customs enforcement, Israel, and capitalism. And then he claimed that the American empire was, quote unquote, in the process of dying. 4 days before the event, Senator Rick Scott wrote on X that the Trump administration should immediately revoke Yale's federal funding because the student group was hosting Piker. That's crazy. Who said during a live stream last year that if you cared about Medicare fraud or cared about Medicaid fraud, you would unalive Rick Scott. Scott, a Florida Republican who spoke at a Yale political union debate in October, was previously the chief executive of a hospital company that was investigated for fraud and later paid $1.7 billion in settlements to the government. That's right. This was back when we were doing DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, and we were trying to get all the Medicare fraud, which I am pretty sure the conservatives and anyone on board with the Department of Government Efficiency were thinking that all this fraud is happening at the hands of the consumers, right? Like the people that qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, the people that qualifies for Social Security, that they're lying and somehow getting money that they shouldn't. Like I think there was a quote of Elon Musk saying there's like 113-year-old person collecting Social Security that's fake. And it's like, okay, brother, whatever. You stopped one 113-year-old from getting money, I guess. That's saving fraud. But in reality, the actual fraud that happens from government or with government funded things is the people providing the services, right? The people that the government actually pays. And Rick Scott, like the article says, the chief executive of a hospital company that was investigated for fraud and had to pay 1.7 billion. So what the heck? That he actually did the fraud. Okay. I'm especially sad that Senator Rick Scott couldn't make it, Piker said Tuesday at his opening speech, drawing laughs from the audience. I'm sure he had many opinions on whether or not we should end the U.S. empire and the global capital system, which is what I'll be talking about today. And then your grandparents are probably going to hear about it on Fox News tomorrow. Yale Political Union President Moore Sepsi, graduating in 27, said Tuesday's debate saw the most demand he had seen for a political union event. Earlier this semester, when we hosted New York mayoral candidate Curtis Silwa, I stood on this very stage at this very podium and proclaimed that I could say without a shred of doubt that I have never seen this level of excitement for a guest at Yale Political Union. Setsby said as he introduced Piker, that distinction was perhaps short lived. It was electric. Kai Shun Kweep Rupp, graduating in 28, who gave a speech opposing the resolution, told the news after the event, I really appreciate that the community cares about it. As the national headlines are reflecting it, it's really contentious, so it's good to have civic engagement at Yale, and it's really good to have people disagree who are willing to listen to each other. Oh my God, are none of these students like have American or English names? Geez, I'm sorry. Avi Rao, also graduating in 27, the Yale Political Union speaker, said that while the increase in attendees brought more energy to the debate, every student speaker was able to speak, have questions, and not be interrupted. The crowd thought they spotted Piker entering 3 times and began to applaud, only to realize that time someone had entered the back door of the hall. When Piker entered, the lecture hall erupted into applause. This is a guy who has a modern media presence. Kamiri Kell, another graduating in 28, a member of the political union's independent party, said in an interview, he reaches our demographic exactly, people that are our age. In his remarks, Piker traced the history of what he called America's imperial roots, from the Spanish American War through World War II and the Cold War, which he described as an endless series of butcheries, each more perverse and more tragic than the last. What was the point of defeating the Nazis if we went on to dominate so much of the globe as violently as we have? He asked. After the fall of the Soviet Union, which Piker argued was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century, America had no more big enemies left to beat and turn the gun on itself. Interesting take. No matter what we say here, the American empire is going to inevitably fall, Piker said. Piker argued that the American people still had power to manage the retreat of the American empire from the world stage, preventing it from ending in a much more violent way. Students who argue against the resolution suggest that the United States, while in need of reform, should remain as a global superpower. Power does not evaporate, it changes hands, yes. Arguing that an American empire is greatly preferable to the dominance of other global powers. Similarly, William Flanagan, finally, graduating next year, argued against Piker's vision of a weak, retreating America. We do not have to accept anything less than what we know this country can be, Flanagan said. The resolution passed by a vote of 54 to 31, with 3 members of the union abstaining. So does that mean they agree with HASAN? Okay, cool. Let's um let's watch this, even though I think it's going to be bad audio quality.
Questions on speech. Perhaps question. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Well, I thank Mr. Piker for his speech. I really agree with all his points. I think that when Mr. Piker mentions that the American people are the political body from which struggle begins, I guess I want to ask Mr. Piker, how do we also square American national struggle with international struggle? What does it look like to actually have this sort of overthrow of the empire and be something that is a kind
Oh my god, I can't with these questions. They're so bad. Let's just go into... What the frick is he? Oh my god, sorry, I gotta turn this down. Oh my god. There's like 1, 2, 3 girls.
But apparently it will be screwed live on Twitch. Mr. President, Mr. Piker, Mr. Speaker, and chat. It's a pleasure to be here with you. As you may say about your empire. And I really
See,
think that Mr. Piker
this
is
just
very
has such bad audio quality. And then, like, I don't know, man. I guess when the people watching the debate, if they agree with it, then they stomp their feet. And if they don't agree, they hiss, which is crazy. Because, like, I guess they're just pretending to be snakes. See, they're stomping right now.
Moving on to who's paying, let's look at the kid in Mississippi whose school can't afford textbooks while the nearest military base next door gets $500 million in expansion money. The veteran, poisoned by burn pits, denied care while defense contractors produce record-breaking profits. However, and having said that, money isn't the real issue. Even if we taxed the wealthy and funded both empire and society, empire would still be wrong because empire means domination. It means killing people who have done nothing to us, including our fellow U.S. citizens.
Okay, sorry, we're skipping around.
Are there perhaps closing remarks from the guest?
See,
Yes.
I can't with this. This guy is too much on the spectrum, and he is like, sorry.
Thank you. Are there perhaps closing remarks from the guest?
Yes.
Good.
Do I say forward to the speech again?
Nah, you can just go.
All right.
See, it's very, what's it called when you have certain procedures?
Wow. That was incredible. A lot of wonderful speeches I heard today, and some maybe not so wonderful.
Oh my God. Okay. I can't watch this. It's just, it doesn't even, it's bad audio. I can't with these children that are like, you know, fresh out of, let me see if someone else has a better, like, clip. Hasanabi Yale. I mean, I guess we could watch him react to it.
Liberals don't understand anything. He doesn't even know what the dictatorship of the proletariat means. Stop Anti-Semitism posted this, said, watch Yale students orgasmically welcome Hassan Piker. A man who said America deserved 9/11 and calls the murderer a sitting U.S. senator. Yale is poison. Keep your children and grandchildren as far away from this institution as you
Bro,
can.
JD Vance
Now,
went to Yale.
You know, Noah Colwyn also made a joke and said, watch Yale students orgasmically welcome Hassan Piker. That's an insane way to cover that. And
Whoa, wait, hold on. Hassan's watching Katya?
from this, yeah, I know. The leftist Indian student who sounded like it was one of the chatters you always yell at. Yeah, I did a little bit. I did also do a little bit of that. Sometimes we can just let the whimsy take hold and enjoy the ride chat. We don't need to freak out about everything different. No, I know. It's the autism function. That's what it is. They're like, well, people were hissing. It's illegal. Like, calm down, chatters. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, just enjoy the goddamn show. You know what I mean?
I couldn't. Too many actually nerds there.
Like, holy shit. Anyway. I was mentioned on the Bold and
Hell yeah.
the Bald and Beautiful podcast. I'm gonna play that real quick.
Wouldn't know. I don't know. I can't
Hassan
remember.
Piker.
Hassan Piker, yeah. Who's that?
Who's that?
It's because you're Dake. It's because you're Dake.
I'm probably a lot closer.
Damn. Trixie was like, who's that?
He's a very he's a Twitch streamer, very active on Twitch. He's Mary. I don't want to thirst over him. Be the 4,000th obnoxious person to thirst over him online, but yeah.
I think thirst is different than listen. It's a blessing to have five senses, including sight. It's a blessing to be able to notice something beautiful and say, "That's just beautiful."
Yeah, I just don't want to add to the annoying din of people online like thirsting over him.
Just do it.
I just want to be unique.
I understand.
Yeah, but I would suck the shit out of his asshole. Ooh, let's take a break.
That was it. That's the mention. That's what you guys wanted me to see.
Yes. What does it respond, Hassan?
That one speaker called his grandma's decision for how his family existed evil was crazy. Yeah, that's definitely. All of those were Hasanabi heads, by the way. Even
that's
the
it. He just said Katya wants it and ignored. That's crazy. Okay. Here, let's go back to.
But But yeah, liberals got really mad at this one. He doesn't even know what the dictatorship of the proletariat means. He's just not that. He's not just dumb about politics. He's also dumb about Marxism. Again, one of my number one haters. One of my number one fucking haters. Okay. Was previously the chief executive of the hospital company that was preventing it from ending in a point did not eat. But his point did not eat. Europe, close in proximity to the USSR, the specter that was haunting Europe, that math of such incidents. That was the entire point of my speech, at least. So, this was another.
Manages to be $361 billion larger than last year's, despite cutting $300 billion in social programs and
Yuyito 74. Yuyito 74. God damn. Thank you. I was talking optics. This speech wasn't for the modern Democrats or Republicans. You're talking to politics-inclined youth at a revered university. It was for the kids in the room and just so happened to be streamed to everyone. Yeah, it's really funny that people are making it seem like this was my stump speech at like a fucking Michigan rally or something. And this was actually, I mean, I'll be honest, like I pulled back. I pulled back on more radical elements of my speech on purpose because I assumed that the room would not be super receptive to it because it's Yale after all, right? Like these are the sons and daughters of incredibly wealthy individuals. And therefore, my expectation was going to be that they would not be positive about such, radical statements. But what's really interesting about it is I was wrong because this diva cooked right after me.
Of the international corporate conglomerates that our governments serve. America is not and has never been the linchpin singeing together the democratic free world. We toppled Allende to install Pinochet in the 70s, provided financial backing to the fascist Argentinian juntas, supplied unconditional support to Yeltsin, chief architect of the modern Russian oligarchy during the Soviet collapse of the 90s, and today we bankroll the genocidal apartheid Israeli regime, playing defense in the UN for the anal gang rape of Palestinian prisoners with rusty metal holes. We have set a global historical precedent for draconian drug laws, upending entire economies with gang warfare driven by the American elite's unquenchable twin desires for coke and bloodshed. We have set back progress, combating the climate crisis that threatens the imminent annihilation of life on Earth, of the international corporate...
Wow.
She's the exact opposite of the redheaded kid from Cambridge, but she cooked hard. Yeah, no, she popped the fuck off.
Okay. Yale speech sounds like it was a good thing for Yale students. All right, let's go back into do more deep dive into why the Democratic Party hates HASAN. Actually no, let's watch this first because I've been dying to react to this on stream. I saw this on my own, and oh my god, this lady on the right is she's conservative as heck, man.
Hey everybody, it's Tim Miller from The Bulwark here with our publisher, Sarah Longwell. She has a book coming out. I don't know if you heard about that. I wanted to talk about an article that our colleague Lauren Egan wrote with, behind her back a little bit. So you guys can alert her to it if you want. It's called How Big is the Democrats' Big Tent? And it's centered around this question of the streamer, HASAN PIKER, who is on the far left. Is he even a Democrat? I think is the question. He's one of DSA. He has a lot of critiques of the Democratic Party that come from the left.
He's not
part of the coalition. His critiques of the party are particularly acute when it comes to Israel and their actions in Gaza and our broader military involvement around the world. And the question is, there were some Democrats who were saying that Democratic strategists and commentators were saying that the party shouldn't associate with PIKER because he has some extreme views. We can debate the extent of this, but he said some things that are either anti-Semitic or anti-Semitic curious or adjacent, and the questions are whether people should deal with him. So I think that I went long on this topic on the stream last night. For you to be like, now we, as the centrist establishment serious types, want to exile a far leftist from here because he has some impure thoughts about Israel. It's like, all you're doing is making it more powerful. All you're doing is making people think you're a bigger idiot. To pick right now to have this fight? And it is truly, it's like madness.
Yeah.
Like the entire country is moving the other direction. We can just be honest. It's moving HASAN's direction on the question of Israel. And you're like, we're going to pick a fight with him on that?
Yeah.
Right now? I don't get it. We did this already 5 years ago where a bunch of liberals were like, you can't go on Joe Rogan. He had some bad opinions. And it's just like, we can't do this shit again. So people can go if they want to hear my full sermon. I did, I think, 20 minutes on this topic last night because it's complicated. And I just want to kind of break this down. Sarah saw all of that, some of that, some of it.
I saw the whole thing. I watched the whole thing.
Okay, Sarah watched the whole thing. Wow, JVL's going to be jealous. Sarah watched the whole thing, my whole long sermon. And so I just want to set this up. I just going to want to break it down. There are a bunch of sub-elements to this, right? Like, which is, do I agree with Hasan Piker's politics? Like, I do not. And I went through some of those disagreements. Should people go on Hasan Piker's show? I think, yes, we can talk about that. Should Democrats campaign with him? Like, there are differing views on that. Should there be a litmus test somewhere in the party? Like, where should the Democrats draw the line in their big tent? Like, should the tent encompass the entire country? Or, should there be polls that if people fall outside those, they shouldn't fit inside the tent? So, like, those are kind of, I think sometimes the conversation, like all that stuff gets jumbled up into one thing. And, my views are different on different sort of sub-bullets. So I just kind of wanted to start there. You watched my whole thing. On which one of those elements do you feel like your disagreement is with me?
So I think I want to start with kind of Hasan Piker, the guy, the stuff he says, and like, who is he? Because to evaluate him is then to evaluate the rest of your questions, right?
Okay,
should he be in the tent or out of the tent is a question of like, okay, who is this guy? What does he believe? What does he talk about on what is a relatively popular streaming site? And I'll just give you a flavor of some of the things that pop up from Hasan's critics that I have seen and that I think are quite terrible. So America deserved 9/11, dude.
Okay, hold on. Trigger warning. This lady, her name is Sarah Longwell. And I was just about, because she was like, who is Hasan Piker? We don't know who he is. Well, first off, let's get a little bit of deep dive on who Sarah Longwell is. Sarah Longwell, born March 6, 1980, is an American neoconservative political consultant and publisher of the conservative news and opinion website titled The Bulwark. I like The Bulwark. I like Tim Miller. I know it's a conservative site, but it's always nice to get a perspective of them sometimes. Okay. She is a founder of the Republican Accountability Project, known as RAP. Wow. Known as Republican Voters Against Trump, which spent millions of dollars to defeat then Donald Trump in 2020, blah, blah, blah. Okay. After graduating Kenyon College in 2002, Longwell worked at the Intercollegiates, blah, 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 in Delaware, moved to Washington, D.C., got a job with Richard Berman, a Republican lobbyist and later PR expert. Longwell also served as managing director of the American Beverage Institute, a trade association set up by Berman. Oof, that lobbies on the behalf of the alcohol industry. Longwell became the first female national board chair of the Log Cabin Republicans. Longwell was instrumental in persuading the Log Cabin Republicans to refrain from endorsing then-candidate Donald Trump in 2016. In 2019, the Log Cabin Republicans endorsed President Trump for re-election, and Longwell resigned from the board. Longwell resigned as the chair of the board. Crazy. All right, so now you know. She's just basically conservative through and through. So take her criticisms of Hasan with a grain of salt, but also pay attention to how she is doing this.
On China, he says, we hyper-focus on the social repression or the civil liberties, or not even civil liberties necessarily, but free speech and things like that. But in terms of good governance, there's a lot we can learn from the way they perform out there. At least they get results. And he has a lot of very pro-China takes. There's one that he says was a little bit taken out of context, but he says, doesn't matter if the fucking rapes happened on October 7th. That doesn't change the dynamic for me even this much. So that's the other part of this problem that many people can't contend with. Like the Palestinian resistance is not perfect. They're not like so good. They have magical bullets. I don't know what that means. He says Hamas is 1,000 times better than Israel. On Hezbollah, he said, overall, what's my favorite flag? Hezbollah. Look it up. I'm not even kidding. It's actually a dope flag. It's got an AK on it and a fucking hand holding it up. On Dan Crenshaw losing an eye in Afghanistan. What the fuck is wrong with this dude? I also dislike Dan Crenshaw, but I would not say this. Didn't he go to war and like literally...
She dislikes Dan Crenshaw, but he's a conservative. Okay, hold on. I want to see the stupid America deserved 9/11. Oh my God.
America deserved 9/11.
Oh my God. This is like, Jesus, not even the full clip.
And so here we are. I'm living up to what I said about conservatives and progressives.
No, this is another meme too. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Now, the latest display, the Young Turks contributor, HASAN PIKER, going on this vulgar rant, mocking wounded war vet, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, for losing his eye fighting for our freedom in Afghanistan.
This guy has the understanding of foreign policy of like a 12-year-old. What the What the is wrong with this dude? Didn't he go to war and like literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave soldier, his eye hole with their Isn't that how he lost his eye? Because he got his eye hole? America
Jesus.
deserved 9/11, dude. I'm saying it.
Damn.
Here exclusively to respond to that vile creature is Texas Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Congressman, what was your reaction when you first heard this?
Well, wow, he was triggered, wasn't he? I mean, that is the
they're so
definition of a
triggered.
leftist getting triggered. Doesn't like what he's hearing. He disagrees.
The leftist tears. Oh, yummy. Sorry, it's so stupid. He's triggered. Yeah, brother, he was triggered because he was arguing with chat for over 2 hours about chat not understanding how we used to fund Osama bin Laden. Okay? That's what the whole conversation was about. We were talking about Mujahideen fighters, how the US funded them to fight the Soviets in Afghanistan. And homie, yeah.
With it, doesn't understand foreign policies. Mentioned something about being 12 years old. Yeah, I have almost 12 years of experience actually deploying overseas. So maybe that's what he meant when he said 12 years. I don't know.
No, he just said
but
that
he clearly doesn't
he was
know
saying,
much.
how can you, Dan Crenshaw, a man who was wounded in the line of duty, how can you actively advocate to start more pointless wars where other men and women and Americans would be harmed in active duty? Like, have you not learned anything, is what Hassan was trying to say.
And when you don't know much about foreign policy, you get really mad when people disagree with you. And if you can't argue your point, you tend to insult people. And man, that is exactly the outrage culture that we have right now. He is a perfect example of it. He's trying to walk his comments back now. Good on him for trying to do that.
That's it. As Dan Crenshaw's. Okay, let's go back to Sarah Longfellow. Oh yeah, Bashona in a Box said, "This is so funny." I know. Just keep listening to Miss Sarah Longwell rant about Hassan.
Lose his eye because of some mujahideen, a brave fucking soldier, fucked his eye hole with their dick. On Israel being full of inbreds, you are left with a country that is packed to the fucking gills with the most inbred, uneducated, ultra.
Okay, sorry, I have to pause it again. All right, on the inbred comments, let me go to Reddit real quick. Reddit, it was a Israeli Reddit Israel. Hold on. Israel. It was a recent picture of this guy, of an Israeli fighter laughing at a poor Palestinian. Israeli soldier laughing at woman. I think it was a Palestinian woman. Here we go. There we go. All right. On the inbred comment. This is the most recent picture that I have to say, the freaking Israel was like, this might be fake. This might be AI. Okay. What are the top comments on this? That guy has got to be one of the ugliest people I've ever seen. 6.6 thousand upvotes. So ugly that a picture is an alleged hate crime. Oh yeah, they were saying that. Italy's magazine publishing anti-Semitic Der Stürmer-worthy imagery should clarify where they got this image from. The military vest worn here is no longer used by the IDF. The wedding ring and bracelet are never worn by ultra-Orthodox men. The formation of the beard and the kippah are outlandish, and of course the very bizarre smile showing teeth are unnatural. Okay, but it was a real picture, right? Oh, wait, hold on. How do I get out of this? Oh my god. Sorry, I'm being a boomer right now. There we go. Okay. The person thought the picture was unfathomably ugly and comically evil looking. The only explanation must be anti-Semitism. Okay. The ugliest thing about this dude is his personality. 12,000 upvotes. Oh man. This guy's family tree is a effing wreath. And it has a picture of this. Family ladder. Oh my god. People making eugenic stuff. Okay. Oh, oh, and then someone posted this as a picture. Yeah, yep. That's it. Bro, like, I'm sorry, what is his face? Okay, okay. Oh my god. He's giving him McDonald's. I'm sorry, this is the best. This is the best one. Donald Trump dressed up as a McDonald's manager feeding a sick man hunger. Sorry. Okay, okay. All right. So back to the inbred thing. Like, come on. Come on. You know, if it's gonna be marked as, if you're gonna say that people like this look like inbred people that are like basically hillbillies, you know, you can't be like, that's anti Semitic, bro. It's not. It's not. Homie's just ugly. Okay.
Nationalist, rabid, Haredi population on Russia's annexation of Crimea. Annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation. What do you call Crimea? I call it part of Russian territory, bitch. I call it Crimea a river, a Russian river. The annexation of Crimea was absolutely a justifiable annexation on black people. Black people care about the border. I don't give a fuck what black people care about. Black people care about this. Black people care about that. Like, shut the fuck up. That's not how politics work. And then, I don't know if this
I
is
love how
my-
she
I don't
thinks
know
that's
how
a
to-
legitimate.
I'm not going to rank these, but this one's a real doozy. Date rape is better if it happens to rich women. If you have these fucking millionaire, billionaire, WASP fail sons, at least taking them out of other colleges so they can only do date rape to other billionaire, millionaire failed daughters is in some respects, you know, from a utilitarian perspective, of course, a little bit better. Okay, PIKER told off a listener who condemned the massacre on October 7th, a bloodthirsty, violent pig dog suck my dick. Okay,
Oh my god.
so that's the guy.
Okay. That's the guy.
That's the guy.
the straw man that she painted.
I do not think any Democrat should look to include him in their coalition. And here's the thing. You mentioned my book at the top. I just wrote a whole book that is going to come out in September. It is 300 pages. It's called How to Eat an Elephant One Voter at a Time. It is 300 pages about how you build a winning coalition. There's not a single paragraph.
Hold on. She said how to eat an elephant one voter at a time. So she's saying that she's not Republican anymore? That's weird. Okay, but anyways, let's continue.
That recommends cozying up to people like HASAN PIKER. I talk a lot about big tents. I talk a lot about a pro-democracy coalition. But here's the thing. HASAN PIKER doesn't actually belong in the pro-democracy coalition. He's an illiberal guy. He's a China-Russia sympathizer who hates women, hates Israel. Like, he's all the toxic things.
He
and
hates women.
And I was listening to you last night, and I was like, my biggest problem with it, because I agree with you in some places, my biggest problem is I felt like you were soft selling who this guy is. Like, at one point, I think you called it like impure thoughts or something.
Well, this is one of my defenses of PIKER, which is also defense of myself, is that if you're streaming 8 hours a day, like, I feel like the critics that sometimes like look at like an 8-word snippet of something somebody says, I'm like, you fucking talk for 8 hours a day. I just talked for 1 hour a day last night, and I rewatched that video and saw impure thoughts, and that's not what I was trying to say. I was trying to say that you just talk for a long time, and
yeah, but
and
you
you're
don't like
anyway.
you don't accidentally say America deserved 9/11.
No. He had some very bad takes in there too. He
wasn't an accident.
for sure.
Can I push back on this idea though? They're not takes. Like, this guy has a worldview that I think is anathema to liberal democracy. It's not that we just disagree with his politics. I think his worldview
Okay, hold on. What is illiberal? What is illiberal about Hassan's worldview? He doesn't want to give up voting. He wants, voting to be easier. Like, I don't get it with this whole he's illiberal. And I feel like that's the new buzzword of the moment that conservatives are going crazy over because liberals are going crazy over it because we just talked about Viktor Orban and his illiberal society. You know, he was basically an autocrat, right? There was no liberal democracy there. Liberal democracy means that you have this liberty, right? That's what it's coming from. You have this freedom, these rights to these freedoms. And I don't know why she's trying to paint HASAN as someone who wants less freedom. And like, no, HASAN has never called for less freedom. That's so weird. But, again, she's a conservative who is trying to paint him as a bad guy.
Is gross, and the way he talks about people is disgusting. And so, like, I think he is all of the things that I think you were being too hard on sort of the third way types who are condemning him, because he is condemnable. And I think it is important. You and I spent a long time when I was on your podcast trying to take our longtime reflexive pro-Israel stances and kind of wrestle with that now in this new world. And
Pro-Israel stances. Okay, so she's saying we have pro-Israel stances that we need to wrestle with. Boy, oh boy, baby, do you have a lot of issues to wrestle with in terms of pro-Israel stances. Jeez.
With that. And one of the things that is scary about wrestling with that is that there's a bunch of people on the I'm against this war, I'm against Israel's involvement in this war, who do it for anti-Semitic reasons. And I think disaggregating from those people as you criticize.
HASAN is not being anti-Semitic in saying that he doesn't support Israel in the war. That's crazy. That's a crazy relation to make.
This war is absolutely essential from a moral standpoint.
This is, I think, this I think is the crux of the deal, because as I said last night, I argued with HASAN about China on and off stage. Like, I argued with HASAN about his focus on Israel on stage, and I think that he is a liberal, and I think that if HASAN was running for Congress or president,
you think he is illiberal?
Illiberal, I do, and I think that if he was running for one of those things, I would oppose him. And I think that probably. I think it's very unlikely that me and HASAN will have the same preferred candidates in the Democratic 2028 campaign. If we do, that candidate will end up being very adept at navigating our very fractures. So who the hell knows what the future holds? But like, I don't like it. I don't like his worldview, and I think that it is worth objecting to. And I think it's worth people like us objecting to and hashing it out and fighting with him about it and arguing about a lot of the things that he thinks
but
are bad.
in reality, they're not. Well, at least Sarah Longwell is not trying to disprove HASAN's worldview. She's just trying to straight up cancel him and censor his worldview, which is crazy. Imagine if a liberal was doing that to a conservative. It would be the end of the world.
I also just think that, two things. One, people that consume him hear that list and are like, that doesn't mesh with the guy I know. Right. And I think that if you came up with my 10 worst takes, they would not sound as bad as his list or anywhere near as bad, I don't think. But especially if you go back to 2004, I have some pretty bad takes going all the way back. Okay. So I just mean, if you put my list together, I think a lot of Bulwark people would be like, guy, like, you're being unfair. Right. And because I think that there are a lot of areas where he is genuine, that he cares about stuff, human rights. And again, I don't watch this on day to day, but I hearing this from other people, I think they would say, wait a minute, you're trying to turn him into like Tucker or somebody whose whole show is about anti-Semitism right now, but like he talks a lot about making sure people can get a living wage and human rights around the world and how we should care about rights for people.
So does Tucker.
Okay, fine. So anyway, I'm just telling you what people would say about him. I think that I do think that it is a category difference. A lot of people who are criticizing me about the stream last night were trying to lump it in with like, I thought you left Trump. And I was like, no, Trump had a lot of obnoxious views, and then he ran for president, tripling down on them and being like, hey, here are all my worst views. And like, I think that we should institute them as policy. Some of the things you laid out, I think HASAN would agree with. Some of those things, if you read the profiles of him, he's backed off on, particularly.
No, he says he does not apologize for any of them. He was just taken out of context. He's like, I don't take any of them back. I don't walk any of them back. But really taken out of context.
Okay, well, maybe I'd have to listen to that. I guess I just would say that holistically, it is a category difference for me from what you hear from MAGA. All of that aside, though, because we can take the measure of the man, and you can decide that he's a wholly unacceptable man, and I can say that he's a man that has some bad views. And we could hash that out. The strategic question, the analytical question, right, is how Democrats should handle somebody like that. Yeah. And like, this is where I'm the harshest on the view that he should be kicked out. And I'm particularly harsh, and I said this last night, and this relates to your point about Israel, about like picking this fight with him right now, like at this moment today, April 3rd of 2026. Because right now we are embroiled in a catastrophic war that is that the Secretary of State said we did because Israel got us into it. So, like, you can call that a conspiracy theory or whatever, but like the Secretary of State said it, and the president has basically said it, though he does word salad a bunch of times. And I just think that any fair analyst could look at it and say, well, obviously, like, this war is more in Israel's acute interest than ours. Like, that's just a statement of fact, right? So, like, we're in this war with our partner Israel right now on the heels of their behavior in Gaza.
Yup.
Whatever, however you want to describe that, whether it's genocide or ethnic cleansing or war crimes or just
What is she going
more
to call
killing
it?
than
Is she going to say that Israel is doing ethnic cleansing in Gaza, or what? Let's see what she says.
was necessary. Like, anywhere on that continuum. Like, this comes after that. Now we've partnered with them for a war in Iran that is going to create massive damage globally to people's lives. Like, people are going to be materially harmed by this war. They already are. And there are a lot of people out there in this country right now who are really mad about that. And they're about to get really madder in the coming months.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of
This
them look
was
at the
almost 2 weeks
they blame
ago.
Trump, but they also look at the Democratic Party and be like, you guys have been on this too. Joe Biden was in there when Israel was doing the Gaza thing. The Democrats have been, part of this bipartisan establishment that got us into these stupid wars forever. And they look around for people, and who do they see out there saying, no, we should not do
Literally
these wars.
no
They're stupid,
one.
they're wrong. They see people like HASAN. And so in this moment where people are very bad, a lot of voters, that when you say how to eat an elephant one at a time, a lot of voters Democrats are going to need, whether they be young voters or men who don't want to go to war or people whose costs are going to go up. Like, right now at this.
Okay, back to or to add on to Tim Miller's point, you have Hassan out there saying, this is bad, being an active voice against what was happening in Gaza. And then you had Hillary Clinton saying that Gaza was just a bad optic thing that was on TikTok. Like, this is the two these are the two things.
We're going to talk about none other than racist warmonger Hillary Clinton, who reappeared recently at a conference held by, I believe it was Israel Hayom, which let's just go ahead and play the first clip that went viral. Many of you may have already seen this clip. If you haven't, we're going to play it now.
That our students, smart, well-educated young people from our own country, from around the world, where were they getting their information? They were getting their information from social media, particularly TikTok. That is where they were learning about what happened on October 7th, what happened in the days, weeks, and months to follow. That's a serious problem. It's a serious problem for democracy, whether it's Israel or the United States, and it's a serious problem for our young people. And it was frankly shocking to me how little the students we were encountering, not only in this class we teach, which is a very large class, international relations about crisis decision-making, but students more generally. And that's why I mentioned the social media piece of it, because when you would try to talk to them to engage in some kind of reasonable discussion, it was very difficult because they did not know history, they had very little context, and what they were being told on social media was not just one-sided, it was pure propaganda.
What?
And so when you think about how to tell Israel's story, and it's important, it's not just looking internally, it's looking externally, and particularly looking at young people, because, it's not just the usual suspects. It is a lot of young Jewish Americans who don't know the history and don't understand.
What? Okay. I think
I was talking to Condi
Okay.
Rice.
I think
Oh, God.
later on, Hillary Clinton goes on to say that, you heard it right there. She's saying that TikTok is the problem. Okay, let's break that down. The fact that Palestinians and whoever was there to witness and capture the violence firsthand, to spread what Hillary Clinton called propaganda is the issue here, okay? It's not that, I thought we lived in a liberal society where we have freedom of speech, freedom of press, right? Freedom to share these information. And Hillary Clinton is acting like it was like unproportionally represented. The violence in Gaza was unproportionally represented compared to the violence in Israel, right? That's wrong, bro. I can't believe she would tell these young students to not trust their own eyes, you know? It's crazy. It's crazy. So it's like you have the Democratic establishment, or like as Tim Miller says, the Republican and Democratic establishment that have always been on board with helping Israel no matter what. No matter what. No strings attached, no questions asked. We they have been okay with that level of involvement. And now that, Netanyahu, who is also a illiberal, president, because he's been doing democratic backsliding for I don't know how long now. But you know what? There's not democracy in these areas, or at least in Israel, and like trying to control the media and the spread of information is not the way to solve it. It's not the problem with Israel and Gaza is not that people were recording the atrocities. It's that Israel was doing the atrocities. Okay? And it is not that American students and all these whoever else around the world witnessed all these atrocities happening. It's that the atrocities happened in the first place. So that's like, it's crazy that Hillary Clinton, one of the most established Democrats in the party, would say that it's the young people should not be seeing all this information. That's crazy for her to say. And then, on the flip side, you have Hassan, who's like, okay, let's research everything together. Let's try to figure out what is happening in the news today. And you see these violent things, and it's like, how can you ignore your eyes? It's crazy.
This moment, a lot of them are assessing the landscape, and they're saying like, "Fuck, Trump betrayed me." Like I thought I was on board with the no wars candidate. Okay, and they're gettable right now. I get as ripe as they have ever been to be gotten by the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And in this moment, the Democratic Party and their leaders should be focused, in my view, on being as clear and loud and passionate as possible. No stupid wars. I will not get you involved in this. This is a mistake. To the extent that Israel is involved, the fact that our relationship is closely tied to them is a mistake. And if we ever get back in power, we will not betray you. We hear you. We see this. And instead, you hear a lot of Democratic leaders being like, "Well, we should kick this guy out." That's what he's known
Crazy.
for. Like if he's known for anything, it's being anti this stuff. And it's like, what? We're picking this fight with him now?
Oh, she's mad.
I'm just like, I could think of 1,000 other things I would rather Democrats pick fights about now. Like, why him right now?
Because he's making their life harder. It is people like Hassan
They're making their life harder.
Hold on. People like Hassan are making Democrats who want to take a stand against this war, right? And who want to probably take a stand against the way that Trump is just sort of like, doing whatever Bibi tells him. Shut the fuck up! In a way.
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up!
Sorry, I need a soundboard so bad, but like it's the ASAP Rocky song called STFU. Every time I just hear in my head, just nonstop, like when I don't like what these people are saying, I just want to be like,
shut the fuck up! Is there heaven for a pig?
Oh, whoops. Okay. We don't want to get copyrighted. I love you, Mr. ASAP. A Stardust City Hag said scapegoating him. She's reaching so far. Yes, she is. And it's crazy. It's like, you're a conservative. Why do you care so much about the Democratic Party? You don't see me I'd be more than happy to share my opinion on Republicans anytime. But it's just like, shut the fuck up.
Imperil the safety of Jewish people in this country. They're trying to do it in a way that they don't want to be anti-Semitic. And I'll tell you why Hassan is so dangerous, is that what it does is it's exactly what Trump does. It's exactly what Nick Fuentes does and Tucker does. It takes maybe legitimate rage about something, and then it gives them an enemy to put it on. It gives them an outgroup to blame for it. And I think you have to be so careful with that so that you're not doing that, which starts with...
Is she not also pointing at, like, taking legitimate rage and pointing to an outgroup and blaming them for it? She's basically doing that to Hassan. Jesus.
Condemning the people who hold the same position as you for reasons that are bad, for reasons that are hostile to Jews.
Here's where I disagree.
Here we
Totally
go.
disagree. Totally
Tim,
disagree.
Cumster and
It starts with
Dumpster
condemning
her.
the fucking war and condemning Israel and condemning Bibi and condemning Trump and being passionate and clear about it. Because then what happens? Then, if you have the credibility then with the voters
Amen.
who are anti-war voters, who are unhappy about the way that they see the bipartisan establishment. And they thought Trump was going to be their savior from this, that there was this blob in DC, and no matter which party is in charge, we always get into stupid wars. They thought Trump was their way out of this. And now they're like, Trump's doing the same shit that all the other ones did that we said we didn't want it. He's doing it worse.
Yep.
And so now if the Democrats go to those people and go on those shows, they should be on those shows. Democrats should be begging Joe Rogan or Theo or whoever to have them on right now. They should be on Manosphere shows being like, I told you, this was stupid. I didn't want to do this. This war is dumb. Our relationship with Israel is too tight. We should be reevaluating it. We should not be getting dog walked into this war. By the way, MBS also sucks, right? Like, you can do that in a way that's not anti-Semitic because it's what has happened. Like, it's happened. And so if they did that, and then in 5 months, they're like, you know what? Okay, look at this though. Like, you guys, we cannot, be shoulder to shoulder with somebody as this view or that view, or we have to get, like, then you have the credibility.
Why is there a 5-month gap? Why can't it be in the same breath? I think it should. I do agree with you,
because you gotta give someone a chance first, right? I'm sorry, is that not like what Republicans and even liberals in 2016, when Hillary Clinton stepped down and gave the concession speech that she lost the presidential election? She was like, we owe it to Donald Trump to give him a chance. And I said, yes, ma'am, I'm giving Donald Trump a chance. And I spent 2016, 17, 18, 19, and then fucking 2020, 4 years of hell, bro. Okay, so give HASAN a chance, but she has an agenda.
that nature abhors a vacuum, right? Like, part of what is happening is that there is a desperate anger over this war from a lot of people that feel.
Well, why
betrayed by
wouldn't
Donald
there
Trump,
be
that don't want
desperate
any more
anger?
foreign wars in the Middle East, and like, we're almost it's not about Israel. Like, for some, for
It's
some people
not.
it is about Israel. For some people it is about anti-Semitism. Those are different. And then there's just a lot. I think the vast majority of people are just mad we're doing this again. And so,
Yeah.
like, Democrats,
And what's
should
wrong
be
with that?
condemning it. They should be outspoken. They should be the one to try to gain a following by talking about this. But I think in doing so, they should separate themselves from people like HASAN. I don't think you have to wrap your arms around him. I don't think
He has credibility and they don't.
Yes, that's what
and
it
they should go get
ultimately comes
credibility
down to.
themselves.
exacerbating.
They don't need to borrow it from him.
No, they
I'm
don't
not
have
being
credibility though, bro, because they lied already. They're Democratic establishment. They we backed Joe Biden, and then he did that horrible debate where he was, couldn't even talk, and then 2 days later we were like, okay, we don't know what the F is going on, but Joe Biden's not going to win, and we backed Kamala, and then Kamala gets the endorsement at the DNC, and she turns around and says we're going to be the most lethal and violent army in the world. Like, they keep lying to us, okay? That's why these Democrats have no integrity, right? This is why HASAN, like Tim Miller is saying, HASAN has to lend these Democrats his credibility because they don't have it on their own. She's stupid for saying that they should have it on their own when they can't.
I never said, again, here's a disagreement. I never said I think Democrats should campaign with him. I disagree with that.
I don't think they should go on his show.
I think you
They can
don't
go
think
on
they should go on
Rogan.
his show?
HASAN's? No.
Oh my God, we could
He has
not
so
agree,
many
disagree more.
views.
Oh my God, the people that
Yeah,
watch
I'm not
Hashan's
even
show are not terrible. The regular people, a lot of people they're gonna watch this video, watch Hashan's show. I hear
Let me
from them.
ask you
I saw
this.
them on the street. The idea,
I know.
This is like the same shit we just did with Joe Rogan. It's like Democrats
Yup.
should that one. Joe Rogan has terrible fucking views. They have to speak to those people. Those are the people that they have to speak to. Why wouldn't they do that? Like right now, especially right now when they're the most
All right.
gettable.
Let's say, so Nick Fuentes is out there saying we should vote for Democrats because Trump is doing this for Israel. Think Democrats should go on Nick Fuentes' show? I don't.
Well, Nick Fuentes is full of shit, is the thing. I mean, I don't think they should go on a show, but not really so much because he's an anti-Semite. I don't think they should go on a show because he's a troll. He's just a troll. HASAN really believes what he believes. You can say his beliefs are bad or wrong or shameful or should be condemned, and you could go on a show and fight him about it. But like, HASAN is not out there doing jokes about ovens and the Jew. There might not have been that many people killed in the Holocaust, doing trolling. Like, what does Nick Fuentes even believe? Does anybody even know? Does he even know? I don't think he even knows what he believes anymore. Like, he's just full shit. Like,
Nick Fuentes is just a troll through and through, Like, how can you be so pro MAGA and then the minute that Donald Trump does something you not like, and then you're like, MAGA's dead completely, drop Donald. It's like, he doesn't have convictions. He doesn't have, a legitimate worldview that he wants to see play out. He just wants to troll and get laugh along the way. That's not what HASAN's about.
variety show. HASAN has passionate left-wing views, and they should be grappled with, I think.
Who says that 9/11 was America's fault and that, I don't think this is a serious
That's
person.
not
This is my,
a view,
my
bro.
problem. Now, and I'm going to both state a problem, and then I think one of the ways in which strategically this is bad. Nick Fuentes and Hassan Piker are both being elevated in the discourse because there's a Streisand effect happening. This I do write about in the book. The Streisand effect that makes these people
Shut
more
the
powerful.
fuck up.
It gives these people a bigger platform, where whether it is
You
the
know what's
earnestness
crazy is that like she is one of the executives of the Bulwark, and like why does she have to come on one of her employees' shows to freaking hawk her own book? You know, it's like you couldn't go on any other shows that that don't work for you that you could have talked about your book on, but nope, this is the only place. I wonder why.
of Hassan or the nihilism of Fuentes, right? People are like kind of there for that experience, and it raises their curiosity. This happened with Andrew Tate. Like there is just a series of people where the outrage against them is making them more powerful. That being said, understanding that dynamic doesn't mean that like there's just sort of a right is still right and wrong is still wrong. Like I do think Hassan, but like I felt this way about Mamdani.
No, it's on my show. Does that just make you uncomfortable? Like the phrase globalized intifada, from the river to the sea?
To me, ultimately, what I hear in so many is a desperate desire for equality and equal rights in standing up for Palestinian human rights. And I think what's difficult also is that the very word has been used by the Holocaust Museum when translating the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising into Arabic, because it's a word that means struggle.
Sure.
And as a Muslim man who grew up post 9/11, I'm all too familiar in the way in which Arabic words can be twisted, can be distorted, can be used to justify any kind of meaning. And I think that's where it leaves me with a sense that what we need to do is focus on keeping Jewish New Yorkers safe, and the question of the permissibility of language is something that I haven't ventured into.
It's like I just feel like the phrase globalized intifada is not something people should use, because even if you don't intend it to be that way, it is heard by Jewish people as like kill us everywhere. And so that should be condemned. And then I asked,
okay, well that, you know what, if you're hearing the word intifada and think that means something against you as a Jewish person, why would you not look up what intifada means? Jesus, it's like they are looking for things to, claim anti-Semitism against.
Anyone on the show.
But like I think trying not to elevate these people in the discourse, or us being clear that they are malign actors. Like we can wrestle with what they say. And actually I want to say something, because I'm not sure if we've talked about this before.
What?
I was also on a panel with him, and I didn't know who he was going into it. This is like actually the embarrassing part of this is that I don't like really know. I don't like follow who the Twitch streamers are. And I hadn't really heard of him. Or if I had, I hadn't bothered to figure out who he was. And when he started talking, like the first things out of his mouth were like ridiculous, and they were attacks on Bill. And it was this like kind of it was just like garbage lefty nonsense. And I also had a fight with him on the stage and condemned what he was saying, and also was like, this guy's worthless.
Worthless, brother.
I don't find him to be remotely interesting as a thinker, or I get that he's got a big audience, but just because these guys have big audiences doesn't mean they're all created equal.
Again, I think this is why I know you the 5 months thing and right is always right. And I think that people in the commentary space that want to criticize him should. And I understand that right is always right. In my argument for engaging with him last night, I said it was like even this week he attacked Scott Wiener, state senator out of California, for visiting Israel after October 7th. And I was like, that's a crazy thing to attack somebody over. That's an insane thing to attack somebody over, and that's wrong. And I find it repugnant, actually. But we can disagree about that. Here's my problem though, is why it matters all in the context of Israel. You're saying that these guys are being elevated by the Streisand effect, and I think that is part of it. It is true. And I think that I think that's why this is counterproductive to have this fight right now for pro-Israel Democrats or centrist Democrats, or whatever any of those groups, because I think right now he's being elevated quite a bit. But I don't think that's what's elevating him. I mean, I think that what is happening in the world is elevating him in the moment. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, this is like very uncomfortable for like defenders of Israel to deal with. But like what happened was we were in a world after October 7th where there were a lot of people that were too soon for my taste out there attacking Israel for what they're doing in Gaza and how they're prosecuting the war, and they're doing so in ways that talked explicitly
clearly
about
anti-Semitic.
Okay, well there are times that they're clearly anti-Semitic, but there are also times where they're talking about things that other people weren't talking about in the news, like the amount of death and destruction that was happening to the Palestinians in Gaza.
Yes.
And they were talking about that passionately. And maybe they're passionately and earnestly anti-Semitic. Okay, but they were talking about this topic passionately. Talking about how Israel is a malign influence on the world, and that they have too much, and they have too much influence in American politics. We're giving them too much aid. That AIPAC is too involved in these campaigns. And if you came and listened to my show a year ago, Like anytime this topic come up, I was on the opposite side. I was saying that you're overstating. It's kind of anti-Semitic how you're blaming AIPAC for everything. You're overstating AIPAC's influence, and all of their critiques of Israel. Israel has just done everything that they said.
Yup.
Like AIPAC now is the key player in Democratic primaries and internecine primaries. They are the group that is putting the most money in. That's not a Jewish conspiracy theory. That's just what's happening. I talked to Democratic strategists. They're like, the race is going to be determined based on AIPAC's involvement.
Yep.
Like that's just is what it is right now. And Israel did then continue to go way overboard in their prosecution of the war in Gaza, and then not to mention what's happening in the West Bank with the settlements, not to mention the fact that they're invading Lebanon right now.
Yeah,
and then we
like
did get
that's one thing we need to talk of. Like, it's like, okay, we started the war with Iran because Israel attacked Iran. Israel also attacked Syria, and now Israel's attacking Lebanon. Like, what the? Like, come on, come on.
into a war with Israel. Like the Secretary of State said we got into because Israel was going to attack first if we didn't do it. So like so sure, there might have been some anti-Semitic stuff mixed in there, and that's not good. I'm not okaying that. It's bad. They should not do anti-Semitic stuff. But like their general critique of the lefty anti-Israel commentators like has borne out in the real world. And so I don't understand. I don't know what pro-Israel people expect. There's been a huge sea change. If you just look at the polls of voters, they're looking around. They're like, I am unhappy with the extent of our relationship militarily with this country. I'm unhappy with this war. All of the establishment figures want to kind of tamp that down. And there are these other voices out there that have been speaking about it. Well, obviously they're going to gain influence. And shouldn't Democratic politicians talk to the viewers of those shows? They're not all anti-Semites. They're just unhappy with how things are going in the world.
I think you can do it. So what I don't like, and I don't want to say that I think you're falling into a trap, but I do think that there are ways.
My
One of
God.
biggest
She
critiques of
said,
Democrats
I
is,
don't
look,
want to
the thing I-
mansplain you. But she said, you're stupid and you're falling for Hassan. Next up, she's going to be like, Tim, I know you're a gay man and you're probably only feeling this way because you're attracted to Hassan. So chill out, Tim. Jesus. She has so much against Hassan for no reason.
them to do is to get out there on offense, to say what they believe. They should passionately argue against this war if that is what they believe. If it's not, that's different. But like they should passionately argue about it so that people listen to them. And so they have credibility on this. That doesn't require Hassan Piker.
But
like,
who's doing
this
that?
idea that
This is part of the problem.
Exactly.
Is Hakeem Jeffries doing that? Is Chuck Schumer doing that? Are the 2028ers?
No, none of the Democratic leaders are doing that. So that's why the Democratic base is turning and looking for someone else because they're failing us as they always have.
Gavin Newsom came out there and was like, "Oh, Israel's an apartheid state." Then he apologized
should ignore,
for it.
but this is why
Who
they
is
should
the
ignore
avatar
Hassan
for this?
Piker. They should ignore Hassan Piker at all.
Ignore
They
I'm
should
fine with.
ignore him. They
Why?
should
I'm fine with
ignore him
ignoring.
and condemn him. I think I do not think it's hard. If you listen, when we were anti-Trump, right? The reason that we were anti-Trump is partly because he loved to be in lockstep with all the grossest people. Who had gross opinions. It's like the very fine people on both sides. It's the way he checks in with Tucker. And the right would argue this. Why is J.D. Vance cozying up to them? Why do we condemn them? We condemn J.D. Vance for cozying up to bad people for electoral reasons. And that, I think, is the problem. That
I'm
felt
not
to me
saying
like your
people should
argument
cozy up.
yesterday.
This is where the folks that are attacking me, I think are wrong. I'm not arguing that they cozy up. It's fine to go on a show and argue, to disagree with them. What prompted all this was the idea that John Ossoff has to condemn Hassan Piker.
You know what's funny? I agree with your
because
point.
Hassan Piker complimented him. That's fucking insane. Fuck you is what John Ossoff should say. John Ossoff should say, I don't know what Hassan Piker's whole.
He should say, I don't know who that is.
I don't know who
He
that
should say,
is.
like,
Here's
no,
what my
but-
opinion
I wish
is.
I
I'm
didn't know
against
who he
this
is.
war in Iran.
Yeah.
I'm against this war, and I'm against this Trump
Oh my
administration
God,
that's
she's
killing
getting
people in the
so
streets,
mad.
and that's what I care about. You want me to talk about some streamer? Eat shit. That's what I think John Ossoff
and I
should
was
say.
on your side. I was on your
Great.
side on that point. It was
Great.
the rest of it. It was last night. It was last night listening to it being that I do not think, though, for electoral reasons, they need to embrace Hassan. That is different.
Did I say embrace? I never said embrace. I said talk to his audience, talk to the people that listen to him and Joe Rogan and Theo and Sneeko, all of these anti-war people. That there's some anti-Semites there. I hear that.
But
Guess
you can
what?
do that without-
Guess what?
without
Anti-Semites
them at all.
voted for Barack Obama.
But how
Anti-Semites
can
voted for
you?
George Bush.
How can you get the eyes onto the people you want, the politicians you actually want people to look at if they're boring as hell or just not saying anything that young people are willing to engage with? She's crazy.
But you don't have to court them.
Homophobes
You
voted
don't have
for
to court them.
Well, no, but you have to have a message. Yeah, the voter.
Not
You have to have a
courting
message for the
Hassan.
people that listen to the
because
shows.
of the anti-Semitism. Like
You have to have a
don't
message
court
for
them
people that listen to the
because
shows like, oh, let's make sure that the people in McLean, Virginia, with that go to the parties in DC aren't mad. It's like, who cares what those people think? Talk to the real Americans that are flocking to these shows that are upset about what is happening in the world. Have a message for them. Talk to them. Go on the platforms to talk to them. And if then the host says anti-Semitic stuff, say no. I don't fucking believe that. I don't believe the Jews were behind Charlie Kirk's murder. I don't believe the Jews control the weather. I don't believe that the Jews there's a lot of okay, whatever. I don't believe that we deserve 9/11. You can say all that on those platforms, but also say to people that, you know what I'm mad about? I'm not mad about some streamer and something he said 3 years ago. Like what I'm mad about is this war that we're in right now. And I think that there are a lot of people out there that feel like the Democratic leaders are totally out of touch with their anger right now. And I think that this is just this kind of fight just exacerbates that.
I agree with that particular point about it exacerbating it. And so again, I think that we should separate the idea of like Democrats should be going hard against this war. They do need to be more aggressive. They do need to speak to a wider audience. I do not think they need to do that with HASAN PIKER and I do not think, and I think
Who
they
give
should be
another
very
example of
clear
who else, bro?
to separate from the anti-Semites as they do it, because otherwise what you are doing is ginning up anti-Semitism. And I understand. And last night I was
here's the part of the problem. We're going to do this. I'm just going to say it. I don't support anti-Semitism. I think there's a lot of anti-Semitism out there. I think that a lot of the people who are pro-Israel and pro this war weaponize this though. And it's like, well, it's too anti-Semitic. If I would have said a month ago that Israel is
okay, but if you think he's anti-Semitic is a lot different than if he's anti-Semitic. Is HASAN anti-Semitic? I swear to God, there's like a 30-minute clip. HASAN defending arguing against anti-Semitism. I don't know how to spell that. Let's see if this is it.
I urge you not to succumb.
No, that's not. Well, let's hear it.
I urge you not to succumb to nihilism because there are many other crises out there, especially including the crisis that the Palestinian people face every day. And the truth matters and your voice matters. So continue to keep up the pressure.
Okay. Okay, whatever. We already know this. We already know this. So she's being like, I think he's anti-Semitic, with no facts. It's just her feelings.
Is weaponizing social media to try to brainwash people. You would have said that was anti-Semitic. A lot of big Israel defenders would have said that was anti-Semitic. Well, then Bibi went out and said that he wants to do that with TikTok. He sees TikTok as a weapon. Okay, if you would have said that Israel's going to drag America into a war that we have nothing to do with, based on their influence over our political leaders, 2 months ago, people would have said that's an anti-Semitic thing to say. And now we're doing that. And so I'm with you. I'm not for anti-Semitism. That what happened in Michigan is a tragedy. People should be clear-eyed. But also this notion that that there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to police the rhetoric around this because they don't want Israel to be criticized in the full,
and they're not even
view of their actions. And there's a lot of criticism of Israel that is merited right now. And I just think that this, again, it goes back to who you empowering. I think that if you try to if on one side Israel is starting a war in Iran and getting us into this quagmire and hurting people's lives, and then on the other side you have people that are saying things about Israel, and you're out there and you're like, I don't like the way that you're talking, and that's the thing that you're very passionate about, and then you're not that passionate. You're like, well, I don't know. We have to. Bibi's a partner. We're going to work with him. We'll see. You know what I mean? There's a disconnect with people. And I think, again, you're empowering the actual anti-Semites. I think you're empowering the actual anti-Semites by not being clear-eyed about the real threat here.
How is this different? This is one of the.
She's like, I'm gonna kick his ass off the payroll. He's embarrassing me. Oh my God.
Thing, and this is tough, but I'm gonna put it out there. How is it different? Our objection to Trump when he showed up, and this is where when people were like, it's locker room talk, I was like, you locker room talk. No, it's not. The way they tried to downplay things, we stood against Trump. And look, everybody else on the right, I don't take a lot of their criticisms. They're not in a position to levy this, because what they did is say, you know what? We need Nick Fuentes' audience. We need Tucker's audience. We need to all get on board with Trump despite the horrific things he's saying because he's right about XYZ. Yeah. Right?
I'm sorry, but didn't Trump do that? Didn't Trump? That's why he went on Joe Rogan. That's why he went on Theo Vaughn. That's why he went on Aiden Ross. Trump was like, yes, I need to go where all the young men are. And they were all on Kick. And they're all on Twitch. And they're all on, these different gaming live streaming platforms, So, like, why is it okay for Trump to do that strategy? Like, a clearly working strategy, but not for any Democrat to do. She's crazy. She's like, she must be trying to sabotage the Democratic Party.
Rage that people had. Well, Trump is going to embody that. And we said, no, we stand against random rage from people or rage from people, even about things that maybe they're right to be mad about, income inequality, stupid foreign wars, right? Like Trump had messages that resonated with people. And we were like, no, we stand against that because this guy is a foul person who is going to do tremendous damage to America. We were right about that. Why isn't I want to maintain that against people like Hassan.
Well, one, Hassan's not running for president, and so I've changed my views. That would be one. Number two, Trump was running for president. Number two is like, again, that's not really the apt comparison, right? Like the apt comparison is, should Republican politicians have gone to mega churches to talk to people that have, influential pastors?
And they do,
that have
right?
Terrible views about gays. Maybe they shouldn't have. I don't know. You know what I mean? But like, don't you have to communicate?
They definitely did do that.
Yeah, they definitely did do that. But like, don't you have to communicate to the religious voters on there? I mean, some of this is not like apt because I think that like the Volk that listen to Hassan that like are mad about Israel like have a point. And like the Volk on the right that are like mad about mass immigration coming into the country, like I don't think really have a point. But like that is like kind of the comparison. Like just as a strategic matter in retrospect, like obviously the establishment Republicans should have listened more to their base to avoid having them being overthrown by Trump. That's maybe more of the apt comparison with Hassan. But I just, again, this is like, I think this is funny. This is why I think this is fun. This is like why I think this is funny. Like my issue with the Democrats running for office they're in office and are in power is that they're not criticizing our foreign policy enough. Like that's my criticism. They're not passionate enough. I don't think there's any risk right now that there's like some emerging. I guess Zoran, I guess the example, he's got moderated as in New York and that's kind of avoided foreign policy issues. Like maybe Zoran was running for Senate, it would have been different. But like, who do you want me to condemn? Like, who is the person in the Democratic Party that like is advancing these real anti-Semitic views?
None.
Like Tlaib sometimes in the House. I'm happy to condemn her when she talks.
Tlaib,
Omar.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, but like, all right.
Omar is being anti-Semitic, bro. Okay. Yeah, I feel like Sarah Longwell is just being Islamophobic. So,
like, sure, I'll condemn them. But like the power structures in the Democratic Party, it's nothing. This is nothing like Trump. This is not apt at all. This is not like, oh, you left the party over Trump. I was like, well, Trump took over the whole party. I fought him from within the party, and then he took it over, and then I fought him from within the party, and then eventually I lost the fight, and I left the party. Like that's what happened. Like this fight isn't even happening in the Democratic Party yet. Like the Democratic Party leadership is, in my view, like not radical enough. Like,
yeah, I know.
So I
wait,
don't think
but
that
like, is like Sarah Longwell acting like Hassan is the gateway to a Trump-like figure entering the Democratic Party? And so now she's trying to make up for her sins of being a Republican and stopping this populist movement from happening in the Democratic Party. That's crazy. That's crazy. These people have way too much political motives.
This comparison does nothing for me.
Okay, well, let me just try one more time.
Yeah.
My objection in large part with Trump is that he tried to work on people's worst impulses, right? He appealed to the racism, the xenophobia, the hatred, the bad stuff.
Okay, yes, Trump.
And
how is Hassan
don't want
doing
Democrats to go down that road. I think it is very important when you fight Trump, when you look into the abyss looks back at you, and Democrats should avoid the mistakes that I think the Republicans made that made us leave, which was embracing intolerable people. And that point that you're making about Trump is a fair one. It is fair to say that Hassan is just like a streamer. He's not the guy running for president.
Yeah.
But I do think the elements of your argument, which is that Hassan is representing an angry base and the base needs to be listened to. That's what happened with Republicans. Yeah. They're like, Trump represents an angry base and the base needs to be listened to.
This is what happened.
Yeah, but I think the base needs.
This is just, oh my God. I don't even know what the hell she studied, but like, it's been anti-establishment sentiments from the get-go. Okay, 2016, people were fed up with the establishment. Oh shoot, I would even say 2008, people were fed up with the establishment. That's why they voted for Obama. That's why they voted for Trump, because we were dumb enough to take these men at their face value. Jesus, she doesn't know shit.
Base is bright in this case. I think that what is elided in this conversation is, again, the actions of Israel. When I look at this, again, I do not condone Hassan's anti-Semitic comments. I specifically criticized his tweet this week about Scott Wiener. So, like, I think that it's bad. But if I am worried about anti-Semitism in this country, like that is my top worry. And if you're and that is what a lot of these groups that are trying to make Hassan an issue about. Yep. If that is my top worry, and my main focus is on condemning Hassan PIKER, I think that you've lost your mind. I think I think that is just a totally counterproductive thing to do.
You
I
lost
think
the
that
plot.
by doing that, you're empowering him and empowering the views you don't like. And I think that the biggest problem with anti-Semitism in this country right now is that the United States is engaged in a war, and everyone who just has eyes is looking at this war and being like, I don't understand why we're in it. And the most reasonable explanation I can think of is that Israel wants us to be in it because this is an acute issue for Israel. And I think that that's going to create a lot of people that are very upset at Israel, and by nature, unfortunately, sadly, what is going to result from that is increased anti-Semitism. And if I was somebody who's worried about anti-Semitism in this country, and if I was a Democratic Party leader, I think that both the right thing to do and the strategic thing to do would be to be 100x louder in criticism of Bibi than I am in criticism of HASAN PIKER.
Wow.
And
there
on
you
this
go.
point, I'll just say, I think I am in agreement that strategically what one does, this is something people fall into, and I think Democrats do as well, where they focus too much on sort of trying to critique the thing they think is bad instead of saying the thing they think is right. And so what I would like for Democrats to do is like,
That's what you're doing. Sarah Longwell is critiquing the thing she thinks is bad instead of focusing on what she thinks is right. Instead, she's just being like HASAN PIKER bad and not giving any alternative to good. Bro, people love snitching on themselves. That's going to be the new freaking theme of this stream.
like go swing hard on how you feel about this, the way that Trump got us into this war, the fact that he didn't even ask Congress, that he has done nothing to ask the American people or make a case to the American people. Like everything about this from top to bottom has been an insane adventure. It's the exact opposite of what he ran on. Oil prices are now high. There's a million things to criticize. Go hard. Go focus on that.
That's what Piker is
I
doing.
don't think, though. I think it is a mistake. I think that it is a mistake to make it about HASAN PIKER. I think
You're literally making it about
the anti-Semites and make a good.
See what I mean? People love snitching on themselves. She said it's a mistake to make it about HASAN PIKER, and then she's making it about HASAN PIKER because she literally saw her employee streaming the night before glazing HASAN. Jesus.
Clear case that is steeped in the things that are right. And I do not think you need to, my last word is I do not think you need to embrace people like HASAN. And I think it's fine to condemn him and condemn him and then go make your own case.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't want us to, one of the things, this is a quick note to Bulwark listeners, which is something that is happening that bugs me is when people are like, the Bulwark is embracing HASAN. And I'm like, guys, I get it that Tim's got the big microphone, but like one man's opinion.
That's what this is about. That's what this is actually about. She didn't like how she saw that people on the internet were saying the Bulwark is embracing HASAN, and this is her shitting on him, on Tim Miller. Jesus, to say, you did a bad thing. Oh my God, this is crazy. I never want to work at a media agency. This is terrible.
We have a big array of opinions. We argue about them with each other. That's what the Bulwark is about.
Yeah.
And so if you want honest conversations about tough topics, like that's what we're going to do here. And that the Twitter discourse does a real disservice to this conversation.
Yeah. And the world's complicated.
What?
And it's not clear what the right thing to do is going
What is
forward.
the Twitter
And I do think that there's
discourse?
a lot of projection onto us and everybody. It's like people, want to project their own hatreds or fears, and everybody experiences this. But I hear you on that, and this is why it was funny actually. This is just a comment. We can go meta since we've I think expressed
We've done the
our
substance,
contrary views. The meta comment I think is funny about this is last night after I did the stream, I was like, you should not do this. You should not do this. Is a bad thing to do as an influencer, commentator, or whatever. And I try not to do this that often. But I was just
You went and read the comments?
No, I try to read the comments of the Bulwark Plus members. Join Bulwark Plus now because you're part of our community. I do want to hear their comments. No, I searched Twitter and Reddit. Whether anybody was talking about it or linking about it. Like I searched for like myself and HASAN or whatever our names. And it was pretty funny actually, was that there are like anti-HASAN clip accounts that clipped two of the things that I said criticizing him. And it was like Tim Miller goes after HASAN. And then there were anti.
It was probably the fucking Destiny stands, honestly. Not to bring DGG up in this fucking broadcast, but it was probably the Destiny stands and all the HASAN haters that were glazing up Tim Miller.
Because they're trying to make him a bad guy. They're lefty anti-HASAN,
accounts.
They're
anti-HASAN.
Then they're like the anti-Bulwark accounts, the pro-Israel, whatever right-wing accounts. Like they had clipped the ones where I was explaining why I don't think the Democrats should distance from him, being like the Bulwark has gone full HASAN. It's like this is just like the nature of the discourse, and we started this here when I was saying that there are like 5 subtopics here, and so anyway, my closing point is for anyone that wants to clip this, I do not like his politics, and I disagree with him, and I think that we'll continue to fight over it. I think the question then is, okay, how do you engage with that in a way that's healthy? And is it in a way that's like burn the witch? Is it a way that's ignore? Is it a way that's engage?
No.
Is it somewhere in between all those things? And I think that is
burn
what
the
the question
witch.
is. And my view is, I think the most important part about this is like, how do you talk to, if you're the Democrats, to the people that listen to and trust him, and how do you build trust and gain trust with them without looking into the abyss and having the abyss look back into you, right? Without becoming him, without you yourself advancing views that are wrong or hateful.
But like,
or
what
whatever,
are the
like, how can
views
you
that are
engage them
wrong
without
that he
doing
holds?
That's what I think that should be done. And I think that was kind of the crux of the differing views. So, do you have a final comment, or should we let it go?
I think we can let it. I think we can leave it there. I just
She's like, I've reprimanded you enough in front of the entire audience of this network, so that way our reputation is saved with neocons. Because I don't want any conservative to think that anyone of the Bulwark likes Hassan Piker, that filthy communist. Disgusting.
Secret
Yeah.
pod. For people who don't get the secret pod, Sarah and JVL argue. It's like the Bulwark has one voice. Sarah and JVL literally have an argument pod every week, and it's like the only thing we put behind the paywall, basically, as far as
half of
audio.
it. Only half of it, but yeah.
Yeah, so people can go check that out. Become a Bulwark Plus member.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bulwark. This got only about 200,000 views. That's crazy. I thought it would have gotten more. But yeah, this was one of the best debates I've seen about the Hassan discourse. But let's go in and read some articles now. I'm talking about it because we need to cover it. All right, so this is an opinion piece from The Guardian, written by. Who is it written by? I swear it's just The Guardian. Oh no, written by Bashar. I don't know. Suncross. Sorry, homie. I don't know how to say your name. The party establishment rushed to condemn the Twitch streamer after news of his alliance with the Michigan Senate candidate. Oh yeah, that is the well. Okay, I guess we should read this first real quick. This is from Third Way, which is I don't even know, man. They're like a news organization. Either way, you can get the title like in their name themselves, Third Way. That's like just basically neoliberalism. So I don't think this publication is a very left leaning one. Okay, because anyways, I sent this letter to Abdul Ed Saeed. Let me just look at it. Whoops. Okay. Well, anyways, it was a letter that said, Dear Dr. El Saeed, your plan to campaign with Hassan Piker during stops next month at the University of Michigan and Michigan State is a mistake. We argued in the Wall Street Journal recently that Democrats should seek to push Piker to the fringe where he belongs. We urge you to heed this advice. Mr. Piker is not a good man. Wow. Such a compelling argument. He has years-long records of anti-American, anti-Western, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic comments. He has made it clear in recent days that those are not misstatements. This makes association with him much more than a political liability. It would be a stain on your character. Wow. Still, if you insist on campaigning with the extremists like Piker just weeks after the attack on Jews at the Temple of Israel in Michigan, wow, I didn't know Hassan was in charge of that. Stupid. Voters in your state deserve to know what you truly believe and how you choose closely you align with his most abhorrent views. Do you agree with Mr. Piker that America deserved 9/11? Do you think there is a lot we can learn from the Chinese Communist Party? What's wrong with that? Do you share his belief that ultra-Orthodox Jews are inbred? Do you also dismiss the mass rape of the Jewish and Israeli women by Hamas? Do you believe that he does do you believe as he does that Hamas is 1,000 times better than the Israeli state? If you do not endorse all of Piker's views, which specifically do you reject? You no doubt share your views that Trump Republicans have cast their lot with bigots. Too many in that party have been vile spreaders of prejudice, espoused and embraced the president, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You owe it to Michigan voters to answer these questions. And okay, Jonathan Crowan, president of the Third Way. Okay. I want to read this Wall Street Journal article, but it is paywalled. Okay. All right. Upon the news that Dr. Abdul El Said, a Democratic candidate for Senate in Michigan, is planning to host 2 rallies with the extremist streamer on April 7th, Third Way President Jonathan Cowan wrote to El Said to warn him about associating with Piker and ask him to tell Michigan voters how closely he aligns with Piker's abdominal views. Okay. Let me see if I could get this, but without. Maybe? Damn, can't get through the Wall Street Journal. Okay, we tried. Okay, well anyways, Third Way here wait, let's see if we can continue with Google. Sorry, chat. We are pulling up a link here to try to read the Wall Street Journal because everything is paywalled. Okay, I think we got it. We got it. All right, here we go. The Third Way article in the Wall Street Journal. Democrats are too cozy with Hassan Piker. This is the one that started it all. Oh, it's from March 19th. Crazy. Okay. Man, they got a picture of Hassan wearing his pimple patch and the pimple patch is falling off. Why? Hassan, take off the pimple patch. All right. Free Expression is a daily newsletter on American life, politics, and culture. Sign up for it, blah, blah, blah. As lifelong Democrats, we agree with Senator Ted Cruz on virtually nothing. But Mr. Cruz was brave to decry anti Semitism in the Republican Party. Mr. Cruz also named a big name, calling Tucker Carlson the single most dangerous demagogue in this country. Too few Democrats have followed Mr. Cruz's lead by calling out the rising anti Semitism on the far left. That must change. Okay. The anti Semitism spewed by Mr. Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, and other far right bigots is well documented and widely condemned. But the far left has anti Semites too. No left wing agitator is more influential and extreme than Twitch streamer Hassan Piker. Mr. Piker is often called progressive, but that does violence to the term. A self identified Marxist, he has referred to ultra Orthodox Jews as inbred. Oh my God. Employed anti Semitic dog whistles, such as bloodthirsty, violent pig dog, against an anti Hamas viewer of his stream. Wow, they're really reaching with these things. Compared liberal Zionists to liberal Nazis. Okay, but also Hassan compares all liberals to Nazis. One of his favorite quotes is "Scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds." Okay, and said Hamas is 1,000 times better than the Israeli state. Mr. Piker's depravity doesn't stop there. His misogyny is indistinguishable from that of far right wing influencers. Wow, I didn't know Hassan was sexually assaulting and sexually harassing and doing horrible things to women like right wing influencers are, like Andrew Tate, I don't know, Mr. Clavicular. There's a lot of right wing influencers that do horrible things. Okay. He believes America deserved 9/11. He praised the Chinese Communist Party, saying, in terms of good governance, there's a lot we can learn from the way they perform out there. Like, I still don't understand how that's bad. Mr. Piker is anti American, anti women, and anti Western and anti Semitic. No Democrat should engage with him. All should seek to push him to the fringe where he belongs. That isn't happening. The Pod Save America team put him on stage at Crooked Con. Abdul Al Saeed, a candidate for Senate in Michigan, tweeted a picture of himself celebrating Piker with a supporter. California Representative Ro Khanna, a possible presidential hopeful, pushed back on X against concerns we raised about anti Semitism on the left by declaring his pride in going on Mr. Piker's feed. Mr. Piker chimed in to support him. Handing Mr. Piker a microphone isn't magnanimous or respectful of views that test your priors. Going on his show isn't a sign of bravery or willingness to talk to the other side or to show up in challenging places. All these things do is support a bigot. Wow, they're already labeling Hassan as a bigot. But few dare speak the truth. The only prominent Democrat to call out Mr. Piker's bigotry directly so far is New York Representative Richie Torres. Okay, but Richie Torres is like an AIPAC. He's like the number one AIPAC guy. Mr. Torres sent a letter to Twitch in October 2024. Okay, that was also when Hassan was beefing, or I should say, Ethan Klein was beefing with Hassan, trying every day to get him off of Twitch because they just were like, yes, Hassan is anti-Semitic for questioning Israel. So yeah, it's ridiculous. Left-wing anti-Semites are savvier than Nazi endorsers on the right. Wow. Who marched in Charlottesville, Virginia, and sat for dinner with the president. Oh my God. This article, the third way is saying left-wing anti-Semites, which we don't even know. Hassan is not an anti-Semite. I don't know any other left-wing anti-Semites, but they're saying that those anti-Semites are worse than the Nazis, that rallied in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's crazy. The anti-Semites of the left cloak their attacks and critiques of the present Israeli leadership. Many American Jews, including us, abhor Israel's current leaders, okay? Criticism of Israel's policy isn't anti-Semitic. The Israel-Hamas war was a humanitarian catastrophe for Gazans. What? Israel supporters are labeling what happened in Gaza as a humanitarian catastrophe? Bro, no, that was a genocide. Jeez. Settler violence against Palestinians in the West Bank is appalling. Okay, so do more than just call it appalling. Stop it. But the Jew haters on the left go much further. They use loaded words taught on social justice seminars: apartheid, genocide, settler colonialism. What? Oh, this article is. They push the age-old tropes about Jewish wealth and influence. Epstein class equals turning tax the rich into tax the Jews. And they replace the word Jew with Zionist. Someone said Zio equals Nazi. I'm not saying it. This language is more than offensive. It can beget violence. Last year, an alleged murderer, seemingly inspired by left-wing rhetoric, killed 2 people for the crime of being at the Capitol Jewish Museum. Oh, those two interns, I think. Democrats must understand that accepting anti-Semitic figures like Mr. Piker on the mainstream puts Jewish Americans' lives in danger. It's not, no. There's no excuse for putting political tribalism before Jewish safety, or for overlooking hatred to generate likes online, or for failing to act against the surge of anti-Semitism spread by the Hassan Pikers of the world and normalized by way too many on the Democratic side. We're all for a big tent, but the Democratic Party needs to draw a line in the sand. Hassan Piker and his fellow Jew haters, wow, it's like they're just putting words into his mouth, belong on the other side. Yeah. So there you go. That was the third way article where they apparently called out Hassan for being anti Semitic. Not a very good argument, but okay. Okay. All right, let's get into Ezra Klein's opinion on this is why there's no liberal Joe Rogan. Okay. After the 2024 elections, there was a panic among Democrats about the absence of a liberal Joe Rogan. Could one be found? Could one be created? It was an epic exercise in missing the point. You cannot have a liberal Joe Rogan because Rogan is not particularly political. His audience cohered around conversations with comedians, MMA fighters, bodybuilders, and psychonauts. I don't know what that is. That's what made him politically influential. He could reach millions of people who were not otherwise interested in politics. The problem Democrats actually had, one of them anyway, was that they didn't like Rogan and criticized others for going on his show. They tried repeatedly to cancel him for his comments about trans people and his skepticism of COVID vaccines. That's right, I forgot that Joe Rogan was a big ivermectin guy. You know, the horse tranquilizer for curing COVID. That was crazy how we just let that happen, and I feel like everyone forgot about it. To the extent that he is now right coded figure is not because he started that way. Rogan's political views are mixed. He backed Bernie Sanders in 2020. He supported universal health care and abortion rights. He dislikes vaccine mandates and lacks border control. But it shouldn't have been a surprise when, after years of being attacked by the left, he endorsed Donald Trump in 2024. The simplest way to tell people which side they're on is to tell them how much your side hates them. That brings me to a more important than it might look controversy that has burst over the leftist streamer Hassan Piker. He had a breakout moment over the past year as Democrats began obsessing over the absence of liberal Joe Rogan and Piker, who mixes leftist politics with a bro-ish aesthetic, was pro-offered as a possible answer. A category error because, again, the whole point of Rogan's political power is that his show mostly avoids politics. But pick over Piker's years of streaming and you can find offensive things he said, among them that America deserved 9/11, that his favorite flag is Hezbollah's, that liberal Zionist is akin to a liberal Nazi. Streamer has said offensive things isn't really a news story, but then Abdul El Sayed, the more DSA-ish candidate in the Democratic Senate primary in Michigan, began rallying with Piker. That led Third Way, a centrist group that previously demanded that Democrats draw the line in the sand and shun Hassan Piker and his quote-unquote fellow Jew haters, to send a letter to El Sayed demanding details about how closely he aligns with his most abhorrent views. Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the Anti-Defamation League, said Piker reflected the dangerous normalization of anti-Semitism in our politics. Politico then asked a number of possible 2028 Democratic hopefuls whether they would appear on Piker's show. Governor Gavin Newsom and Rahm Emanuel said they would. Representative Ro Khanna and AOC already have been on his show. Senator Cory Booker, Ruben Gallegos, and Elissa Slotkin said they wouldn't go on his show. Okay, well, that's good because if you watched the stream yesterday, we found out that Ruben Gallego was besties with Eric S.A. Swalwell. And Ruben Gallego was like, I have no idea how my bestie could have done this type of behavior to all these women all these years that I've known him. It's like, homie, You were turning a blind eye on purpose, weren't you? No wonder you won't go on Hassan's show. I think there's a lot of wrapped up in this controversy, so let's take it piece by piece. That's Ezra Klein talking. Is Piker a quote unquote Jew hater, as Third Way alleges? In an interview with the writer Aaron Rangenberger, Piker addressed some of his worst comments. I find some of his answers compelling and others less so. The comparison of liberal Zionists to Nazis, for instance, is repugnant and not much improved by Piker clarifying that he opposes ethnostates. What made the Nazi notable wasn't their support for an ethnostate. Ethnostates are common. What made the Nazis notable was their effort to exterminate the Jewish people. And Piker's assertion that that his opposition is all too reactionary hold on. What made the Nazis notable was their efforts to exterminate the Jewish people. And Piker's assertion that his opposition is to all reactionary ideology is hard to square with his admiration for Hezbollah. Okay, so Ezra Klein is saying that Hassan Piker has no place to say that Israel is an ethno state because he's admiring Hezbollah. Okay, I don't know. But to focus only on these comments is to miss much else that Piker has said and believes. He has also said from pogroms to the Holocaust, Jews have always been signaled out by those in power as a scapegoat for the instability and economic volatility that people in power caused. A resilient, nascent anti Semitism is a constant threat. He has called anti Semitism gross, immoral, and a hate crime, and has promoted John Ossoff, a Democratic senator from Georgia who is Jewish, as a 2028 presidential possibility. In previous presidential primaries, Piker supported Bernie Sanders, who is also Jewish. It is unusual. It is an unusual form of Jew hatred that calls out anti-Semitism and promotes Jewish Americans for the presidency. Yes, 100%. I'm so glad Ezra Klein said this because it's like, how can you support these Jewish people, but then, have probably not Jewish people say, oh, you're being anti Semitic? It's crazy. I have deep disagreements with Piker, but he isn't a Jew hater. He's an anti Zionist. And here I think the real stake is the fight of this fight come into view. We are living through a rupture in both the meaning and the reality of Israel. A Gallup poll from February found, for the first time, that more Americans sympathize with the Palestinians than with the Israelis. Among Democrats, the gap was overwhelming, with 65% who sympathized more with the Palestinians and 17% with the Israelis. The difference, as I have argued, is largely generational. Older Americans still view the Israelis more sympathetically, but among Americans ages 18 to 35, 50% sided with the Palestinians and 23% with the Israelis. This is new. Before 2023, young people and Democrats were more likely to side with the Israelis. This is not the result of an international psyop or profusion of memes. The Israel that young people know is not the Israel that old people remember. It responded to the savagery of October 7th by flattening Gaza in a brutal campaign that killed at least 70,000 Gazans, taking control of more than half of the territory and herding Gazans, more than 2 million people, into the remainder. Life there remains hellish. Israel has made hopes for a two-state solution I don't know, by slicing the West Bank up into Israel settlements and abetting constant settler violence and keeping the boot on the throat of the Palestinian Authority. it has used the Iran war as an opportunity to launch an invasion of Lebanon, displacing more than 1 million people and announcing that as many as 600,000 won't be allowed to return to their homes until Israel decides otherwise. That's crazy. Why would Israel do that? The consent vote just voted to legalize hanging as a punishment for Palestinians who are convicted of killing Israelis in terrorist attacks. Like, that's crazy. That's I'm like, I get it, you know, eye for an eye, but like hanging, we're justifying these like old old ways of punishment. We're bringing it back. That's crazy. Third way suggests you can identify Jew hater by their use of loaded words taught in social justice seminars. Apartheid, genocide, settler colonialism. If that is a test, then a large number of American Jews now fail it. Israel, as it is behaving today and as it is constructing itself for tomorrow, is incompatible with any normal understanding of liberal values. Thank you. Best thing Ezra Klein has ever said. Let me get a drink of water. There will be no Palestinian state to the west of the Jordan River, Netanyahu has said. For years, I have prevented the creation of that terror state against tremendous pressure, both domestic and from abroad. We have done this with determination and with astute statesmanship. Moreover, we have doubled the Jewish settlement in Judea and Samaria. And we will continue on this path. Yeah, see, he just said settler colonialism is the way. Anti-Zionism is rising as a response to what Israel is doing. It will simply not be possible to treat it as a marginal viewpoint that can be shamed or shunned into invisibility. Yes, anti-Semitism often cloaks itself in anti-Zionism. So don't do the anti-Semites work for them. If you keep telling people that they oppose the Jewish state, then they must hate the Jewish people. Eventually, they will believe you. That's crazy because that's what a lot of Zionists have been doing. And this was early on. I'll never not bring up this one actress, freaking Julianne Margulies. I don't even know if she's still a thing. Oh, she's 59 years old. Many wait, hold on. Oh my god, she's been in so many terrible things. Wait, I think this is it.
Juliana Margulies is facing backlash after calling out the Black and LGBTQ community's lack of support for Israel in its fight against Hamas and suggested that some were, quote, brainwashed. Margulies was on the November 21st episode of The Back Room with Andy Ostroy podcast to speak about her role on the morning show before the conversation
this is from 2023.
shifted to anti-Semitism and the Israel-Hamas conflict. Margulies expressed her sadness that Black and LGBTQ plus people were supportive of Palestine and in her eyes were not supporting Israel in their fight against Hamas, especially as she believed Jews have supported the Black community. I'm the first person to march for Black Lives Matter. When that happened to George Floyd, I put a black screen on my Instagram, like I ran to support my Black brothers and sisters. She added when LGBTQ...
She said, I don't know why Black people are not standing up for Israel. When I changed my profile picture to a black screen back when BLM was happening, don't they know what I've done for them? She's so dumb, bro.
People are being attacked, I run. I made a commercial for same-sex marriages with my husband in 2012. Like, I'm the first person to jump up when something is wrong, as I think most Jews are, because we have been persecuted from the beginning of time. The actress then had a warning for progressive young people. It's those kids who use pronouns who are spewing this anti-Semitic hate that have no idea if they stepped foot in an Islamic country. These people who want us to call them they, them, or whatever they want us to call them, which I have respectfully really made a point of doing, like be whoever you want to be.
It's those people.
Oh, here we go.
That will be the first people beheaded and their heads played with a soccer ball, like a soccer ball on the field.
Margulies then brought up a black lesbian organization at Columbia University who was reported to be disinviting Zionists from a film night.
I want to say to them, you fucking idiots. You don't exist. Like, you're even lower than the Jews. A, you're black, and B, you're gay.
Margulies pivoted to the civil rights movement and said that the Jews were the ones that walked side by side with the blacks to fight for their rights. And now the black community isn't embracing us and saying we stand with you the way you stood with us. Margulies' comments drew a swift and furious reaction on social media. Writing on X, Washington Post columnist Karen Attia wrote, "Wish I could say that Juliana Margulies' racist rant against black people is an outlier. But as I've said before, I've heard this same sentiment from supposedly liberal circles. Solidarity with black people is transactional. We are supposed to be grateful charity recipients." Joel Kim Booster tweeted, "I've never heard someone want to say a slur more than Juliana Margulies does in that little podcast she did." For more details and
those dykes don't know what they're advocating for. Don't they know that those Palestinians would kick their head around with a soccer ball if they found out they were lesbians? That's crazy. And then I won't speak. She probably desperately wants to say the N-word too.
Updates to this story, head to thr.com. And for the latest entertainment news and updates.
Thank you, The Hollywood Reporter. Amazing work on Julianne Margulies. Crazy. But yeah, this is the entirety of Hollywood, I think, sums up in here. Like, I would even dare say Ethan Klein was using the same arguments that she was, because it's just like they have no arguments. They just, like, they learned the propaganda and started using it against all Americans. All right. Back to Ezra Klein. The impulse to cut off those whom we disagree reaches far beyond PIKER or the Israeli-Palestine debate. It sits at the heart of cancellation as a political tactic. It relies on a belief in the power of gatekeepers that might have been true to an earlier age but no longer reflect the way attention is earned and held. Tucker Carlson was ejected from Fox News and grew stronger on X and YouTube. Nick Fuentes was banned from major social media platforms and gathered strength in the shadows. Trump went from being banned by every major social media platform to retaking the presidency. It's not just that cancellation has failed to silence those it targeted, it also weakens those who used it. The Democratic Party and the progressive movement was ill-served by the belief that it could decide the boundaries of acceptable debate. In narrowing who it could talk to, it limited what it could hear and whom it could be heard by. I haven't been on Rogan's show, but I've been on some of the shows in that broader universe, like Andrew Schultz's Flagrant and Lex Friedman's podcast. I was surprised by how frustrated the hosts were about their inability to book Democrats in 2024. They had said things that the broader progressive universe disliked or had conversations with people who were anthem to the left. And so Democrats largely avoided these podcasts, ceding them to the Trump campaign. This was not only bad politics, but also bad democratic practice. These shows had come from nowhere and had gained millions of loyal listeners. They had earned their viewerships by voicing something that made millions of Americans feel seen, heard, or at least interested. In avoiding those spaces, Democrats avoided contact with the kinds of voters they otherwise claim to represent. This is the mistake Democrats often make when they talk about what they did wrong in 2024. They realize now that they should try to talk to the people who listen to these shows. Yeah, not just call them baskets of deplorables like how Hillary Clinton did. They are less likely to realize that they should listen to the people who talk on these shows. Beneath this is an important principle. Conversation is not a reward to be bestowed on those whom we agree with. It's a necessary habit in a democracy. 100% agree. The point is not to find agreement so much as it is to deepen understanding. To talk with others is not to believe in the possibility of change, theirs and your own. To talk with others is to believe in the possibility of change, theirs and your own. Whether you like everything that someone has said should be severed with questions of whether that person is worth talking to. The space for such conversations was once wider. In 1968, William F. Buckley Jr., the anchor conservative founder of the National Review, hosted Eldridge Cleaver, the Minister of Information for the Black Panthers, on Firing Line. I think that's an old TV show. Neither man was there to endorse the other's politics. I should like to begin by asking Mr. Cleaver whether he finds it consistent with his ideology to encourage the assassination of Mr. Richard Nixon, Buckley said. Cleaver's answer: I would say that if Richard Nixon was assassinated, it would only result in having another pig in line who possibly would need to be assassinated. Buckley later hosted Cleaver at his home. It was a different time, but it created a lasting artifact. The interview has hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube and remains riveting to watch. Well, let me open this. Okay, yes. This is an old show. Oh, damn. They have, okay, KQED, San Francisco. Hell yeah, we were just watching KQED yesterday with the interview of the California governor's race. Crazy. Okay, I think we've seen this before.
Strength to the national organization, and this means essentially that they would be adding their strength to the racists from both the North and the South who are actively involved in perpetrating laws that oppress the people and practices that.
Okay, we'll watch this after. Are there people I won't have on my show or shows I won't go on? Sure, but those judgments for me are more about what I think will be productive rather than who I think can be included. Similarly, I wouldn't judge Booker or Gallegos or Slotkin for avoiding Piker's show. They're busy people and it may not be how they want to spend their time. But there's something strange about aspiring to lead the country's left-wing coalition and elevating the avoidance of prominent leftists to a matter of principle. That's all the more true now, as attention isn't bestowed on the chosen few by television networks and newspaper editors. It's won or lost in a ferocious marketplace that rewards outrage and controversy. 100%. That's the internet. The winners of the attention wars today are typically people who said some outrageous thing in the past or are still saying them in the present. When you're like Alex Jones, 100%, making the freaking frogs gay, that'll never be old. It'll always be outrageous and I'll always want to listen to it. When you're dealing with podcasters or streamers who talk unstructured and unrehearsed for hours each week, if not every day, there's going to be so much said that it's almost inevitable that a dossier of dumb statements can be compiled. To write those people out of acceptable political discourse is to back yourself into a shrinking, sanitized corner of the public sphere. Booker admitted on Pod Save America that when he said he would never go on Piker's show, he had never heard of Piker. His communications director had read him a list of 4 or 5 worst things Piker had said, and Booker used that as the basis for his response. Oh, isn't that just like how we saw the white lady say? All these horrible things that he said. Booker got piled on for that admission, but I appreciate the honesty. That is, in practice, a version of how many of us make judgments. Algorithmic media is an engine of motivated decontextualization. We see other people in snippets that serve the agendas of those who cut them. We are fed 30-second clips shorn from multi-hour streams, 2-sentence quotes ripped from long conversations, old comments that obscure subsequent change. We have to be careful about being lulled into believing these shards represent anyone's whole person. We should not be afraid of finding out who those people are, of seeking to change them, or allowing ourselves to be changed by them. Oh, that's it. Great. Great job, Mr. Klein. That was a very good article. One of the better things I agree with him about saying. Nice. All right. Um let's do, you know what? Let's take a little bit brief break and I want to watch this Elizabeth Warren thing since we said we were going to cover Elizabeth Warren.
Obligated to tell you how the endowment supports Elizabeth Warren's unique importance as a researcher and writer concerned with changing income distribution and the imperiled condition of the nation's social welfare.
I'm gonna go use the
makes
restroom
this
real
lecture one of the special importance to the campus community. I should say personally that I read her book last year, The Two Income Trap, and I would put it among my very favorites of policy books that both made sense and are going to change policy. So it gives me very great pleasure to welcome Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you, Dean Mason. Thank you, members of the Berkeley faculty, Berkeley students, and Berkeley friends. It's an honor to be invited to give the Jefferson Lecture, especially to follow in the footsteps of such esteemed people. And it's also a particular pleasure to be here. I appreciate the hospitality that has been extraordinary and the good weather. Since I was on a plane that had to be de-iced before it could take off, it really does seem that I've landed in heaven. So it's a special treat to be here today. I want to say I like to talk about the things that I care about and that I'm passionate about, and I only get nervous about the fact that I may not tell you all the things that I want to make sure that you know, and I may not be able to say it as clearly or distinctly because I want you to hear these things. But today I feel a special anxiety as I get ready to do this because the only two conversations that I have had running throughout the day today have been how appalling it is to use PowerPoints and about boring lectures and falling asleep during them. So, you know, having my confidence boosted before I came in here, I will approach this somewhat gingerly. What I wanted to talk about today is I wanted to start by talking about what I think is the single most important economic shift of the second half of the 20th century in the United States. And that is that millions of mothers poured into the full-time paid workforce. A woman in 1970 who had a 16-year-old child was less likely to be in the workforce than a woman in 2003 who had a 6-month-old child at home. It was a profound shift in America. The median family in America, married couple family in America, went over a 30-year period, median, middle, from being a one-income household to a two-income household, a significant shift. And so if we had known, let's say, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, we've been sitting here in 1970, and as part of the Jefferson Lecture, I'd had my crystal ball and I'd said, here's what's going to happen over the next 30 years. Mothers are going to pour into the workforce, take on full-time work, they're going to get better educations, they're going to have more work experience, their incomes are going to rise. They won't get all the way to where men are, but they're going to make substantial advances. Now let's speculate on what the family will look like 30 years hence, that is in 2000, 2005, 2007. Well, the first thing I would have estimated is that people would stop living in suburbs that are far out. I would have guessed everyone would live close in, that no mother of a 6-month-old child would commute an hour and 40 minutes to work. I would have been, of course, very wrong in that first estimate. The second thing I would have guessed is that families will be very wealthy. They're going to have lots of savings, no debt, and plenty of vacations, right? If you've got two people in the workforce, there's going to be a lot of extra income. They're going to be secure. There won't be a lot of bankruptcy. There won't be a lot of default. Nobody's going to be dealing with debt collectors. That's what it's going to look like come the new era. So let's see what happened. This is all inflation adjusted. Everything I'm going to do today is going to be inflation adjusted, so we can just make that assumption as we go forward. This is what happened to median income for married families, and this is going to be my period to the extent the data permit it. It's basically going to be one generation, 1970, 1971 to 2005, 2006. What happened in a single generation from your mom and dad to you, okay, is what we're talking about here. And you see how income goes up for families.
Sorry, sorry, chat. I didn't realize that this video is like 240p. That's how old it is. It's from the University of California Television, UCTV. This was posted 18 years ago. That's crazy. It has how many? 1.4 million views. That's crazy.
There was an underlying message that was not nearly so good, and that is income went up for married couples, but the green line, the one underneath, you notice that income for males, fully employed males, in fact, didn't rise at all. And if you actually look at the numbers, a fully employed male today, once we adjust for inflation, makes about $800 less than his father made a generation ago, talking about median earners here. Okay, so what that begins to tell us is the first part of the story. Family income rose, but as I said, it was rising only because women were going into the workforce. In other words, the bump we got is not a bump on top of the bump we were getting because men were also earning more over this period of time, as they had been in the 70 years that preceded, but is a bump that comes only because they put a second worker into the workforce. All right, but my prediction should still hold. After all, families are getting richer in the sense of more income over time. What happened? Savings went down in this same time period. So the one-income family in 1970 was putting away about 11% of their take-home pay. Think about that. Week after week, month after month, they're putting away about 11%. By the year 2006, you notice the line goes below zero. This is a concept only Alan Greenspan would love. Negative savings. The American family today puts away nothing. And frankly, has been putting away nothing for the last 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
There's nothing there. There is no
Wait,
savings.
this is in 2007?
So savings didn't go up the way I predicted. Oh, but something went up.
Man, no wonder Bernie Sanders wanted her to run in in 2008 because she was amazing. But she was like, no, I can't go up against Hillary. And then Hillary lost against Obama.
And that's revolving debt. I picked revolving debt. I could have picked any of them. Revolving debt just basically means credit cards, where you can carry a balance outstanding. We could have picked consumer debt, which would also include car loans and payday loans and a few other kinds of debt. We could have included mortgage, and we would have gotten much the same picture. Revolving debt is a percentage of annual income.
Credit cards.
Notice there's supposed to be some decimal points in there that aren't showing up very well. I don't know what happened in the translation of the program. But basically, in 1970, the median family in America was carrying about 1.4% of its annual income in revolving debt, store charges. So in other words, just a tiny little fraction on average. By the year 2005, the median family is carrying about 15% of its annual income in revolving debt. Okay, just sort of there at the average. So savings have gone down, revolving debt has gone up, and it gives us this picture if we put the whole thing together here. And that is the left side, 1972. The family blue is saving 11%. And carrying in debt about 1.4%.
Damn. So basically, comparison to 1972 and 2005, the debt has expanded, but like literally, there's also no savings neither. That's crazy. We've just completely come to rely on credit for everything. Wow.
By the year 2005, is carrying credit card debt equal to 1 in every $7 that it earns, 15.6%, and its savings rate is negative 0.8%. So think about what that means. That means over the last 30 years, in terms of a shift, the family spent everything that mom's income added to the family fisc, spent everything they used to save, that 11% that they used to put away, and went into debt, another 15% of income on top of that. They spent it all. Now, whoops, I'll do it a little fast. What did they spend it on? This was the question that really drove me in my research over the last few years.
Please don't tell me it's durable goods.
Where do they spend the money? Because what's interesting here is that everybody has an answer on this one. People can tell me exactly what they spent it on. People are sure. And so I found out the federal government has actually been keeping data on how Americans spend their money. This is done through the Commerce Department, large parts of this, and some of it's through the Labor Department. They've been keeping this for more than a century so that you can look at data on canned meat consumption going back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. You can check out alcohol consumption. You can check out cracker consumption. It's not all about food. It's about cars and rugs and furniture and all sorts of things that the government's been collecting data on. So I found this source for all the data right down the bottom in that, I don't know what the type is called, like 0.01 type. It tells what the government office is that's responsible for this, and if you have any questions, what you're looking for. So glory be to the internet. Found a phone number and found a live human being who, when I started trying to ask about how you could stabilize this stuff and look at it over time, we all understand how you could do inflation adjustment. He said something about, can you disaggregate this so that you can look at families matched for family size? That's really the question here. And the guy said, well, he said, I guess if you cared, I could run the data. And to someone like me, my little heart, starts beating faster.
Oh
and,
my God, data nerd, get
out
out of here.
Can actually run the data? He said, yeah. He said, what kind of family do you want to look at? And I said, I want to look at a mom, dad, and 2 kids. Because we have such variations. There's so many more one-person family households now, and variations. I want to look at a mom, dad, and 2 kids. That'll help me stabilize both on age and family composition. I want to look at a mom, dad, and 2 kids in the 1970s, 1970, 1971. And I want to look at a mom, dad, and 2 kids in 2003. I'm trying to gather these data. And I want to compare them. We'll lump together some expenses, and I want to be able to compare them over time. We'll adjust for inflation and figure out how much more people are spending. He said, great. So he said, what's the first one you want to do? What's the first run? Because you've got to test this stuff out and see if you're getting it right. And I said, clothes. How much more people spending on clothes today? Because all I ever hear about are designer toddler outfits, right? The Gap, right? $200 sneakers.
Wow, sneakers were $200 back then.
That people are spending on themselves and their children in terms of, we have a closet full. And look, I think this is probably right. I can't get a parking place at the mall. All the dressing rooms are always full. So it must be that we're spending too much on clothing.
No.
So he calls me back when he gets the first data runs and emails them. And he says, okay, he said, I've got your number. And I said, good, what's the number? And he said, 32%. And I said, so they're spending 32% more. And he said, no, they're spending 32% less today than they spent a generation ago in inflation-adjusted dollars. And of course, it's like one of these things. The first, I have to tell you, this is really awful. The first 8 times I talked with him after he gave me this one, I knew he had the numbers wrong. Finally, we ran this 6 different ways to Christmas. I finally believed that the numbers were right. And then you start to think about it, well, it makes sense. Everybody shops at discount today. Nobody pays full price in a department store. We import a lot more of our clothes than we used to. Men don't wear expensive suits except for my husband. People don't wear leather shoes.
She said, hubby, you're spending too much money on them suits. I gotta be like the Jetsons' husband and take away that wallet because he's just blowing it all on Armani.
Little children wear sandals and go barefoot a lot, on and on and on. And so the numbers hold. The clothing expenses for a family have gone down by 32%. So, okay, food, let's do food, and let's be sure to put in eating out. Because we all know, with mom not at home anymore, it's got to be that families are spending a fortune on eating out. And besides that, in 1972, nobody had kids. And nobody
I love how, okay, we established this video is 18 years old, and we're talking about families eating out too much. Man, poor little Elizabeth Warren here without her glasses had no idea what food delivery services had in store for the entire American population. Apparently, DoorDash deliveries are our new avocado toast. Matcha deliveries are the new avocado toast, and all of the youth are just wasting their money on matcha.
Right? My grandparents would be appalled by this, right? So how much more is today's family spending on food than they spent a generation ago? Same sort of matching, including eating out. And the answer is they're spending 18% less on food than they spent a generation ago.
Interesting.
And once again, welcome to the world of big box stores where people are buying on very thin margins, supermarkets. People eat a lot more pasta and they eat a lot less meat than they used to. There are lots of reasons that it's actually gone down in terms of what we spend On food. Okay, so I'm beginning to get the hang of this. I said appliances. Nobody had an espresso machine a generation ago. Nobody had a separate popcorn popper. No one had a microwave oven. And by the way, for each of these, one of the fun parts of being able to do research, you can't do this in a lecture, you can't burden a lecture with this, but it's to get all the quotes, to get Robert Frank and Julie Shore and all these people who are explaining why Americans are in so much financial trouble. And each time, of course, they're explaining about how much we spend on clothing, how much we're spending on food, and how much we're spending on appliances. So just in your own mind, pack all those in. And of course, you know where I'm going. 52% less on appliances than they spent a generation ago. And you get the rest of the pattern.
So appliances are cheaper.
Per car average, yeah, we can talk about SUVs, you know, the size of a living room and Corinthian leather or whatever it is you think, you know, with televisions.
They just invented SUVs.
The reality is the per
18
car
years
cost
ago.
of owning a car in America has gone down 24% in 30 years. Principal reason for it, Americans today keep a car more than 2 years longer than they kept it 30 years ago. And
I wonder if that's
have dropped
still
significantly.
valid today.
So the per car, this is what people really spend, not what they projected might have spent, have gone down dramatically. Whoop, I get a little fast here. So the question is, I'm a little trigger happy with this thing. So the question is, if all those things went down.
Well, this is Elizabeth Warren. Oh, I'm a little trigger happy. I think she's Midwestern. No, I think she's from Boston. On the side here, I was looking at the Federal Reserve charts that they have. And this is the one for auto loans over the years. And you don't even need to see me. Here, let me scoot this a little bit over so we can see the full graph in the picture. You don't even need to see, okay, here, let's just go from like 19, which is 10 years. No, that's not even enough. We need, let's see, 1980. So this is showing motor vehicle loans owned and securitized. I don't know what that means. But anyways, you can see 1985. It's 193,000. Well, 1990 gone up a little bit. This is going up 1995, 2000. Oof. 2000 we're at almost 500,000. Oh, 2001 well over. Oh, we're going up. 2005 almost a million. Goes down 2006, then 2008 nobody's buying a brand new car. Even after that no one's buying a new car. 2010, then we go up. 2012 we're slowly encroaching on that $1 million mark. 2013 almost there. 2014 and 2015, we hit it. Damn. And then it goes down briefly, and then it just goes completely up. The pandemic hit, and it's just so outrageously up. We are crazy, and now it's kind of flatlining now, but oh my God, that's crazy. It's bad. All right, I'll keep looking at these on my own.
Clothing and food and appliances and cars went down. And by the way, I could do a lot of this with a lot more consumer goods. Electronics went up, surprise, surprise, $300. Okay, dog food went up. That one went up. Baby food went down. Cigarettes went down. Liquor went up. You should watch that. Dry cleaning went down. You know, the point is, there's either wash or a negative in terms of kind of ordinary consumption. The idea that we are an over-consuming society, what most people talk about when they're consuming. So where is the family spending more money than they spent a generation ago? Well, let's start with a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that the median income family is paying for.
Yep.
And there it is, inflation-adjusted dollars,
Jeez.
a 76% increase in what a family spends on a mortgage. That's the mortgage payment month in, month out. Now think about that. We
Wow,
have much
76%
lower mortgage rates
increase.
than we had
Wow.
30 years ago, for those of you who are old enough to remember. But the difference is, when you take out a mortgage for much more money, the low interest rate will not make up for that difference. And I want to emphasize here, the median-sized house that we're talking about here did grow slightly in this period.
Okay.
It grew from 5.8 rooms to 6.1 rooms.
That's the median-sized house in America?
And on average, this family, this median family, either picked up a second bathroom or a third bedroom, but not both. So for those of you who want to say, oh, but I've driven by them at mansions.
They're empty.
You know, everybody has to have granite countertops and spa bathrooms and media rooms. I've seen them, and compare that with Levittown, which is more than 30 years ago, but to give the idea, all that tells us is that the new housing market has shifted from the entry-level house, which is what was being built in the 1950s and 1960s, to, on average, when you buy a new house today, it is your third to fourth house purchase. That means you've moved up and
so it wasn't just that housing was considered more valuable back then. It's just like the apartments. Instead of building normal ass apartments, all the new apartments that are being built are marketed as luxury apartments. Why the hell if I'm buying a first house, I don't need 3 to 5 bedrooms. Give me 1 or 2 bedrooms. I don't need 5 bathrooms. Give me 2 bathrooms. Shit. I'll be fine with the house with 1 bathroom. God damn, it's just me and my wife. We don't need more than 1 bathroom, right? She said yes. Okay, so man, that's crazy. That makes so much sense. Housing got more expensive because it was more valuable. Because it was more valuable, we had to move to an even higher, more valuable market to continue making money on that. That's crazy.
Moved up until you can afford this bigger house. In other words, housing is not being built for 70% of American families. It's being built for the top 20% of American families. That's what we see when we see the new construction that's underway. For the average family today,
18 years ago,
they are about 50% more likely to be in a house more than 25 years old and have all of the attendant expenses for maintenance. But just looking at the mortgage, 76% more for a mortgage than they had a generation ago. Okay, what's the next one they spent money on? Health insurance. This is my family.
How much has that gone up?
And my family, because I've loaded the dice here, that's lucky enough to have an employer who sponsors health insurance. So I'm going to make an apples-to-apples comparison of employer-sponsored health insurance. How much more does today's family pay? And the answer
Hold on. Well, it's already there in the subtitles, but
is they pay 74% in inflation-adjusted dollars more.
So housing, 76% more. Healthcare, 74% more. Jeez. But, you know, consumer goods down, appliances cheaper, electronics cheaper, clothing cheaper. Yeah, that's all good. But why are these, like, things that shouldn't be, like, necessarily raising in that much value, why are they that much more valuable
than they did a generation ago? Third one, cars, increase of 52%. Okay, Warren, how did you get cars both above the line and below the line? Well, I teach commercial law. But the answer is the median family with 2 people in the workforce has moved from being a 1-car family to being a 2-car family. Families living out in the suburbs, even if they keep a parent at home, can't get by on 1 car much of the time. They've got to have 2 cars in order to be able to get to the doctor, to be able to get to the grocery store. So families spend more because they have more cars than they used to have. Fourth biggest, remember, I've got my mom, dad, and 2 kids, and of course the big difference was mom was at home a generation ago. Today she is out in the workforce, is childcare. Now, I put childcare at 100% increase. In fact, you may remember from 3rd grade that you can't divide by 0, so I could have picked 1,000% or 1% or whatever I wanted to pick here. It is a new expense picked up by the 2-income family that was simply not there for the 1-income family.
That's crazy.
And we have one more expense, and that's taxes. What's happened with taxes is that progressive tax system, as mildly progressive as it is, the first dollar that the second earner earns is taxed after the last dollar of the first earner. So it means that the tax rate for this economic unit has gone up by about 25%.
Oh my God.
In this period of time. Okay, so there it is, downs and ups. And I hope there are 2 things you notice about the downs and ups. The first one is the downs, frankly, are all smaller purchases than the ups are, and that's bad news. And the second is the downs are all flexible purchases.
Yep, you don't need.
That is, lose your job, get sick, have a tough month with various expenses. You cut back on the down expense. Don't buy appliances this month. Don't, cut back on food. It's not that you quit eating, but, there's a difference between macaroni and cheese and steak. Families have flexibility in all the things that shrunk.
Elizabeth Warren, 2007, March 7th, 2007. There's a difference between macaroni and cheese and steak and eggs.
Shrunk the things where flexibility is. But look at those other expenses. Those other expenses are big, fixed, relentless expenses. And so this gets to what I think of as the heart of what my research is about up to this point. And that is what these families look like. And I do look at this the way a commercial lawyer does. If this were a little business, what these families look at. The single income family back in the early 1970s earned less money. That's the first thing you'll notice here, right? They're making about $32,000. This is all inflation-adjusted dollars again. And you notice, of course, they're making a whole lot more money, making about $73,000 in the early 2000s. So, but notice those 5 expenses that I gave you on the preceding chart, that's the part that's in red. The early family is spending right at half its income on these big fixed expenses, these expenses that are very difficult to cut down, to trim back, to cope with. And that family, by the early 2000s, has committed 3/4 of their income in order to meet those 5 basic expenses. In fact, you'll notice the math we've done here. The family, the 2-income family, the mom, dad, and 2 kids, the prototype of the family that's supposed to be working in America, the one that's supposed to be making it all, by the time they pay their 5 basic expenses, they have less money left over, fewer total dollars than their 1-income parents had a generation ago. And now, from the point of view of a commercial law scholar, if I were simply looking at them, and these were businesses, this is, business A is on the far side and business B is on the near side, I'd say, well, business B is going to go broke a lot more often than business A, because they have so much more, so much less flexibility, so much more debt, they're much more deeply leveraged, and are going to have a lot harder time economically. And in fact, that's about what's happened to these families. So there's the heart. Now I want to shift this a little bit to say that's the economics of what's happened. We've seen it on the income side, we've seen what happened on the expense side, and we've seen what it did to the American budget, how it changed and made this a riskier economic unit. But now what I want to do is I want to press on how this family in the 2000s faces, in fact, even more risk than these numbers suggest. All right, first part,
this is before the Great Recession.
The family of the early 2000s now has to have 2 incomes in order to keep its health insurance, to make its house payment, to keep its cars on the road. That means, statistically speaking, if the risk of losing your job had stayed exactly the same over the last generation, the family on the right has twice the risk of the family on the left of not being able to make the mortgage payment. Yes, they've diversified, they won't go to zero, but the point is they won't have enough to make the mortgage payment.
Yeah, instead of relying on a single income, right? Instead of relying on a single income to make those housing payments, now you have to rely on 2 incomes. And if one of those incomes goes away, it doesn't matter if the other person has a job, you're still not able to afford that mortgage because you were expecting to pay it with 2 incomes. Damn, that's bad. Like, imagine back in the day, your family and your dad works and your mom stays home, right? Imagine if your dad lost his job. It would be a much more easier, or I would argue that it would be less stressful back then for the mom to just be like, okay, let me, find a way to make some income, right? Like whether that's all of a sudden she's baking something, selling it on the side, I don't know, doing whatever, whatever a housewife could do back in the day to earn a little bit of extra spending money or just extra money to compensate for, maybe her husband, like I said, her husband lost his job. But it's not like he's completely gone because I would imagine he still has some savings. As we saw, people back then had way more savings than they have now. And that seems like we have 0 savings now. We just rely on credit. But comparing that to the today, if, your husband loses his job, you're the mom and you're already working full time because that house, the life that you're living required 2 income. There's not going to be any way she can go in and be like, okay, let me pick up some extra work or something or whatever, because she's already raising the kids. She's already working full time. And like, you have to pay for that childcare. And that was another expense. And like, she has to work more now. So I get it. Elizabeth Warren is spot on with this, bro. I can't believe no one was freaking listening to this before the Great Recession. This is like the warning of the Great Recession was here.
Families who don't have to bring in 52 checks in order to be able to make the monthly mortgage payment. They got to bring in 104. And if either of them loses their job, they don't make the mortgage payment. They're flat out of luck. And let me say this another way, because I want to give it one more twist. The family on the left has a hidden resource here. They have another worker, the added worker effect. If dad,
I just called it. Oh my God. you know what? Move over, Elizabeth Warren. I'm coming for your job at Harvard because I just made all these assumptions by literally pulling them out of my ass. I was like, yeah, it makes sense that, there would be one less worker, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm smart. Damn. Thank you, Miss Warren. Maybe I won't drop so many snakes in your comments anymore. I know.
Has a heart attack and can't go to work for 3 months, the family on the left has somebody they can send into the workforce. Now, she doesn't make as much money as she does by the year 2000. She doesn't have as much education. She doesn't have as much on-the-job training. But, and here's the key, every dollar she earns is a new dollar. It's an unbudgeted dollar that was not part of what they originally had. So, for example, the family on the left that collects unemployment insurance, combined with the additional income that mom can bring in for a temporary period of employment, they got a chance. They'll go down some, but they got a chance to pull through and come back up on the other side. The family on the right, if something goes wrong, there's no place to go. They've already got their other person, not only at work, but already fully budgeted. They've already given up that income fully in order to survive. But the risk of losing your job, the risk of losing income didn't stay steady between the early 1970s and today. I draw here on Jacob Hager's work. Some of you may be familiar with it, the Great Risk Shift.
Oh, wow.
What Jacob has done in this is looked at a family's chance of a 20% or greater drop in income. And he starts back in 1970. Jacob is a good friend and will stick with the same years I want to go with. And he goes up to 2003, and you notice how income volatility has gone up in this period of time. So now we've got that family not only struggling because they got to have 104 paychecks, struggling because the odds that one of them will be laid off has gone up from where it was a generation ago. Okay, so that's where they are on the income side in terms of risk. This is risk this little unit has to bear. Let's think about health. Okay, same argument I could make as before. They now have double the chance that somebody will be in a car accident and one of their two workers and won't be able to go to work and therefore make enough money to pay the mortgage payment. But this family now faces additional risks on the health side as well. What additional risks do they face? Well, I'll pop forward to one.
They don't have health insurance at all.
Odds that they won't have health insurance. Those odds have gone up over the past 20 years. But the ones I like to think about, I keep coming back to this one because it's my favorite slide. The ones I like to think about are that the world of healthcare has changed in 30 years.
Yes.
So let me just give you an example. In 1971, a woman who was healthy and gave birth to a healthy baby, ordinary delivery, non-cesarean, stayed in the hospital for 5 days.
5 days?
After the day
Oh
the
my
baby was
God.
born. That's what insurance paid for. That's what the hospital
You kick
expected.
them out
Include
the
home
same
if you
day that
wanted
they
to
were
do a
born
total.
today.
5 days in the hospital. If you had a cesarean, 10. If you got to stay in 1971. And you know what the numbers are in 2006? 24 hours.
What?
Okay?
24 hours.
24 hours. And keep in mind, in some places that's by legislation because they were trying to push them out faster.
Because yes, by the legislation to be like, a woman just gave birth, you need to take care of her for 24 hours, because these insurance companies were going crazy and be like, nah, you're fine. You just gave birth. You can go home. We don't need to pay the hospital to take care of you. You'll be fine. Yes, and then horrible things happen at home because she's not under medical supervision anymore. And but you know what? That's cheaper for the insurance companies to do instead of paying for every one of their every one of their consumers 10 days hospital stay. I'd rather take the risk and, maybe deny every hospital stay, but then, maybe someone gets hurt and then we just have to pay out that. We don't have to pay all of these hospital stays. Insurance companies they should be illegal.
We made gains in hospital efficiency over the past 30 years.
No, we
send
haven't.
home the sick people. It really works. There is a policy. We never want to talk about this in the United States. It's known in the trade, in the hospital trade, is send them home quicker and sicker. They save money by letting the family provide nursing care instead of having the hospital. So you still have your surgery done at the hospital, but it's the family that will take care of you post-surgery. And so today we witness the spectacle of my mother-in-law, a woman in her 80s, where someone's trying to explain to her how it is that she can wash a tube and rinse things out and give injections. My sister-in-law was just asked to do this when my brother had some surgery. We're going to train the family to take care.
No.
Only they're both at work. And the consequence of this means that for these families, with everybody in the workforce, somebody gets sick, you just take off work because somebody's going to have to take care of them. Somebody's going to have.
But
you're
now
not gonna
you
get
can't
this
take off
extra period
work.
of nursing care. It's just another way to give one more push. How about if a kid gets sick? Something really serious. Grandma falls and breaks a hip. A generation ago, there was someone at home to provide that nursing care. For that extra 8 weeks that grandma needed some extra help. Today, The illness of a family member has a direct income impact for people who aren't lucky enough to have jobs that pay you even when you're not at work. So the
Jeez,
consequence is we end up with these families. The child gets sick. I read these stories over and over in my bankruptcy files. The child gets sick. Mom stays at the hospital with the child until she loses her job.
Wow.
There are income effects now from
So like she literally she lost her job because she was putting her first job more important, which was being a mother. Staying with her child at the hospital caused someone to lose their job. That's crazy. Employers are the worst.
illness anywhere in the family. So we end up with a family once again bearing more risk that someone will get sick. And, and we can just keep multiplying this. What are the odds of spending $10,000 in an emergency room today compared with spending $10,000 in an emergency room a
Oh my
generation
God.
ago?
Let's hear
One more that I just have to mention that we can't quantify yet, but I'm watching it, is that insurance itself has changed in terms of how much of the medical cost is actually covered. We now have floating around in America what I don't know what else to call it except faux insurance.
Faux
People who think they're
insurance?
insured until they actually get sick and need their insurance, and it turns out that, well, yeah, you have insurance. I love the Utah policy, right, that our Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare comes out and says, I got everybody in Utah insured, except it doesn't cover hospitalization. And it doesn't cover specialists. And you call that, and of course it doesn't cover prescription drugs, and it doesn't cover supplies, and it doesn't, there's more that it doesn't cover than it does cover. So
I think those are those
being
stupid healthcare groups which act like insurance companies, but it's really just like a big pot of money that you put your premium, your monthly, whatever. And they just, it's like worse than insurance because they can deny you for anything or, whatever, are not legally required to even cover your hospital stay. And it's like, what's the whole point of insurance? That's when I would need it the most, is when I'm going to get charged for staying in the hospital.
pushed back on the family. So I'm going to take one more twist on this. So we've got changes in jobs, changes in health insurance, changes in health care, what it costs to do health and care. And I just want to put one more tweak into it, and that is to talk about the special risks facing families with children. I've made this my iconic family. But I want to make 2 points about the iconic family here. The mom, dad, and 2 kids. This is how it works for a mom, dad, and 2 kids. Think how it works for either a mom and 2 kids or a dad and 2 kids. They are now competing. I actually met a woman. It was a wonderful exchange. I was sitting on an airplane right after the book came out, The 2 Income Trap, and I had it on my lap, and this woman next to me said, have you read that book? And I
She's
said,
like,
"Mhm."
yeah, I
and
wrote it.
she said, I'm a divorced mother. And she said, I'm an accountant. She said, I make a good income. I make above a median income in the United States today. She said, I could make it. I could support my 2 kids on what I get for child support. I could do it if I were only competing against other one-income households for the basics, for housing, for health care, for all the things we're buying. But she said, I'm competing against 2-income households. And she said, I just can't do it. So I can't hang on. I can't make it. So that's the first part I want you to see. The 1-income family gets the lower income, still faces high expense, it still wants the house and so on and so forth, and faces all the same risks with no one to back up and provide that second income.
That's crazy.
But I want to slip forward to say something else about families with children. And that is, this goes back to Hacker's work. Percentage increase in volatility by family type from 1970 to 2003. And notice what Hacker points out here. For those of you who can't read the wording, all the way over the far side, green is single without children. That's how much income volatility. And look, that's substantial income volatility that we've got there in the high 30s. Single with children, a little above 40%. Married without children, you get about a 70% volatility. And married with children pushes up to about 95% increase in volatility over the past generation. Now, are families struggling with this? Well, let me show you some of my data. Oh, not my data, government data. I never know what the next slide's going to be. It keeps me on my toes.
Oh my God.
The next one is to disaggregate a little bit more about housing. We talked just a little bit about it before. This is one of those charts. It doesn't fit perfectly with what I'm talking about because the years aren't quite right. This is some government data I found.
Get to it already.
Only goes back to 1983. But notice what it shows. That increase in housing costs, what families are paying for mortgages, I've already got my part in general. They've done it the other way around. What they're paying for the house itself, what the cost of the house is. We saw a 50% increase among families with no children, inflation adjusted in what housing costs. But you notice among families with children, it's a 100% increase, a full 100% increase in inflation adjusted dollars for what a home costs for families with children.
That's
now,
crazy.
we're going to save plenty of time here for Q&A because I think that's more fun than having to listen to a lecture. But I'll tell you at least how I read this chart. Families are buying schools. People without children don't have to buy schools, and so they buy from a wider pool of homes. They can look at a lot of homes in a lot of neighborhoods. Families with children are buying what they believe is a shrinking resource. That is, places where you can have decent public schools and send your children to public
that
schools.
makes a lot of sense.
And in fact, we can triangulate these data in other ways so that you'll love this. I wonder, I was going to say it would happen only outside Boston, but I bet it also happens outside Berkeley. We just have the data outside Boston. A 5-point increase in third grade reading scores between two side-by-side municipalities in the Boston suburbs that are otherwise matched for access to public transportation and size of houses. They've matched it for everything. Sidewalks, crime rates, racial composition, everything you want to look at. 5 points in third grade reading scores translates into tens of thousands of dollars of difference in housing prices. Parents are buying schools. There was a great one out of San Diego.
So it's basically the.
I'm Marianne Mason.
Oh
I'm the
my God! I restarted the whole thing. I'm so stupid. For public education.
I was going to say it would happen only outside Boston.
Okay. I forgot what I was going to say.
But I bet it also happens outside Berkeley. We just have the data outside Boston. A 5-point increase. They're paying for the house itself.
Okay, so of course it would make sense that because families are the ones that want to buy houses, the houses that are in good school districts are going to be more expensive because that is a resource that people with children need to look at, whereas people with no children don't need to care about that. That's pretty crazy. That's crazy.
What the cost of the house is. We saw a 50% increase. I was going to say it would happen only outside Boston, but I bet it also happens outside Berkeley. We just have to live in a place where they thought the schools were underperforming, where they thought their children would not have as good a chance in school. And I think that's a large part of what we're seeing here. So parents say, I got to have those good schools. I got to get out there. I got to push. I got to get forward. They're spending more, as we've talked about. So what happens to them when they push this hard? Well, there comes in just a little touch of what I want to talk about with the safety net.
All right.
What's happened to the American safety net for these families?
They're gone.
Well, the first part is the personal safety net, the part you build yourself. We've already looked at the data on that. Less savings, more debt, more people without health insurance than we've ever had before. And by the way, I should make a point on this, more people without health insurance. It's really been important to see here how much lack of health insurance in the 1970s, the typical modal uninsured person was an unmarried male, no children, 23 years old. Today, modal is a 35-year-old married person with 2 children, has no health insurance. This is the largest group when you start looking at the groups who have no health insurance. In 2001, 1.4 million people lost their health insurance. Of those, 800,000 earned more than $75,000.
Wow, so those are people that were well off.
That has moved from the insured to the uninsured ranks.
That's crazy.
That we have data for. So what we're starting to see is the people who have no health insurance, the people who've lost that part of their safety net, are increasingly among the middle class. We could pick some others. The shift between the defined benefit plan and the defined contribution plan, for those of you who keep up with the pension lingo. What it basically means is the shift so that you put in money and you take the risk of how long you'll live. That is, whether or not you'll outlive your money, versus the defined benefit plan, which is you get a certain amount until you die. We've moved very much to the former from the latter. So you have a real chance to outlive. Those are on the personal side. If you take a look on the public side, we've had the same kind of erosion of the safety net, and that is unemployment benefits. No longer as a proportion of income.
A lot harder to qualify for unemployment
30 years ago. So they're not providing the same kind of safety. I would make a pitch that what we pay for public education to launch our children into the middle class has eroded sharply. And I'll make the pitch this way. I'm giving you lots of different pieces that we can talk about here, but here's the way it goes. In 1970, it took 12 years to educate a child to go forward into the middle class. How do I know that? I know that from looking at Gallup polling data about what parents thought it took to make it in the middle class. And the answer was a high school diploma, a good work ethic. There were parents who believed in college, but they believed that you could make it in the middle class with a high school diploma and a willingness to work hard. Roll that forward to the year 2002.
Jeez.
Here's a great number for you. Twice as many people in America by 2002 believed that the moonshot landing was faked and filmed in Burbank, California.
People got stupider.
Then believe you can make it into the middle class in America without a college diploma. Americans who differ on everything have adopted wholesale in a single generation that there is a single ticket to the middle class, and that is
That's
a college diploma.
And we were
Now,
saying this in
all by itself,
2002.
would I be opposed to this? Are you kidding? I'm in the education biz. I think this is fabulous, right? Everyone should get a college. My dog should get a college education, right?
My
I'm
dog.
for college educations. I think that's terrific. The difference is when you look at middle class families, if you needed 12 years back in 1970, the taxpayer paid for it.
Yeah.
You got it all for free.
Yeah.
All you had to do was show up, live there and show up.
Yep.
By the year 2000, right, if you need a college diploma, you got to pay for it yourself, by and large. Sure. Berkeley, other state-supported schools, I guess that means you guys are not paying any tuition.
You might be
room
paying.
board books, right? It's not very much. I guess you've borrowed maybe $1 or $2
no,
in order to do this. But notice what that means. It means the launch, what the parents have to do to get this next generation into the middle class, has shifted from being something that everybody pays for, the taxpayer pays for, to something that only the families with children are paying for. I'll make the
That's
same point, by the way.
And then not only are they having to pay for it for, those 18 years or whatever, but it's like there's so many adult children that are still dependent on their parents today. And maybe it was starting to get bad in 2002, but it's only gotten so much worse since 2022. Oh my God.
On the other end of the education spectrum, in 1970, I actually went back and looked at this data. It surprised me. Almost no one sent their children to preschool.
Wow.
And in fact, if you go back and read the articles, you read Dr. Spock from the 1970s editions, 1960s, 1970s editions, they can play with the neighborhood children, they'll be fine. And only a tiny fraction of American children are in preschool. Today it's totally flipped. Read Basilton, read all the education folks, early childhood specialists. They are completely uniform. Children need 2 years of preschool.
Yeah.
And once again, who pays for the 2 years of preschool? It's paid by the family. So one way you could look at this is in the space of a generation, we went from 12 years being enough to push that kid forward.
To be a productive adult.
2 more years, that's 14, right? And 4 more years, that's 18 years of education in order to push those kids forward. Only the difference now is the family privately pays for a third of the education themselves. And we can have some great fun with what the education costs. Recently, let's see, it's been about 3 years ago, Chicago, City of Chicago did a publicly supported preschool program. So there was already some tax dollars in it.
Chi-town
had to pay
call
tuition.
out.
I always love this one. The tuition was larger than the tuition at the University of Illinois.
That's
That's what the
crazy.
parents were supposed to
That's
come up.
crazy. Preschool tuition in Chicago was more expensive than college education in Chicago. That's crazy. But I think, Chicago did the free preschool program, but then they also extended it to covering junior college, right? What was that program called? It was STAR program or something? Yes, I remember because I didn't get it. Because I wasn't born in Chicago.
Up with to put their 3-year-old into the system that was going to get them the education that was going to get them ultimately launched into the middle class. So in that sense, we shrink part of what's available to support families with children so that they can move forward, so they can launch this next generation. So how have families responded to this? This is where I said I'll come to at least a little bit of my data here. Let me tell you about bankruptcy.
Yes, let's hear
What's
it.
happened with bankruptcy? What this one's about, I'll tell you what the bright colors are here. This is about bankruptcy filing rates per 1,000 in the population. And this is in 2000, 2001. I rolled these data forward. It's about 2003 on these data. Married couples are the far one in the light blue. About 7.4 married couples per 1,000 married couples, so each is being within their own group, filed for bankruptcy.
Damn.
Unmarried men, about 6.3 per 1,000. Unmarried women, about 7.2 per 1,000.
Damn.
But the trick here for all 3 of these groups is they are all childless groups. So
Oh my
I
God,
got them
let's see
all-
the
got
groups
them in
with
the
children
graphics there.
that file for
Couples,
bankruptcy.
Men, women alone, and none of them have children. These are the bankruptcy filing rates in the United States in the early 2000s. Now let's add in children.
Oh my God, it's so much
Turquoise
more.
again is married couples, only this time with children. The filing rate has jumped to 15 per 1,000. And among married women,
so
heads of
much
household,
more.
no husband in the household, it has jumped to 23 per 1,000. You notice, by the way, unmarried men with children fall out statistically because there aren't enough to be able to say
Wow.
something that's statistically valid about what's going on here. So what this one tells me is that families with children are under enormous financial stress. I watch them, I study them from the bankruptcy end of the spectrum, which is where they end up. And let me tell you a little bit about why they file for bankruptcy. 90% of those families file for one of 3 reasons: job loss, medical problem in the family,
100%?
sometimes the wage earner, sometimes a child, or family breakup, either a death in the family or a divorce in the family. In fact, nearly half the families have at least 2 of those 3.
Oh my God.
And about 20% have been hit by 3 out of 3.
Oh my God.
That's how it is that they end up in bankruptcy. Now let me give you an idea of what these numbers mean so I can put them in a little bit different context. These families that are filing for bankruptcy, families with children, more children live in homes that will file for bankruptcy this year than live in homes that will file for divorce.
Oh my God. And they would
That is, there are
say,
more
that divorce is the worst thing for children, but like not being able to provide is the worst thing for children. Jesus Christ. You know, your parents are still married, but you're homeless. That's still good. Jesus. Terrible.
children in America, and this has been true, by the way, since the late 1990s. Every year, more children are going through their parents' bankruptcy than are going through their parents' divorce. So let me say that to you a different way. You know anybody who got divorced anytime, say, in the last 6 or 7 years? You know some children who live in homes where mom and dad have split up. Then you, statistically speaking, know more. If you know random cross-sections of America, you know more who went bankrupt. Why do you think you don't know more that went bankrupt? And that's because you can't hide divorce, but you can sure hide bankruptcy.
Yep.
And that's what people have done.
Jeez.
There's an enormous stigma attached to filing for bankruptcy.
Yeah, I'm sure there still is.
When we interviewed the families who had filed for bankruptcy, quite frankly, I was shameless about this. We paid them $50 if they would take extensive telephone surveys for us about bankruptcy. And so we got very high response rates. But one of the key things we learned early on is that people would say, don't use the word.
Wow.
Partly because I can't bear to hear it.
Wow.
And partly because I'm afraid a child will pick up an extension phone.
Wow.
Or someone will walk into the room and hear me use it. And we don't want anyone to know.
Jeez.
About 85% of the families that were filing for bankruptcy were hiding it from their own parents, from their siblings.
Oh my God, so 85% of people going through bankruptcy had no support system? That's terrible.
From their best friends, and in some cases from their own children.
Oh my God, yep, I
Many
believe
of them
it.
said they had other stories. Yeah, they were giving up the house and moving in with Bob's mom because Bob's mom's health was not good.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a story you can tell.
Yeah.
We're moving across country because there are better job opportunities. Yeah, they're moving across country.
Because they lost their
Hoping
job.
they can get a job,
Jeez.
but going to live in rather reduced circumstances. So those are the families who are filing for bankruptcy, in part the reflection of what's happened to this safety net. So I just want to wrap this up and open it up for some questions and answers, because I just want to make 3 or 4 kind of big points at the end here about what we're talking about with these families in financial trouble. The first I want to make is a point about the poor. I've hammered on the middle class over and over and over, and I've done it because for everybody who cares about poor families in America, you should be riveted on these data. Middle-class families under enormous economic stress have fewer resources to give
more
when we talk about how it is that we're going to help
poorer
the poor.
families.
More importantly, they frankly have less appetite to give. When they see themselves as already stretched, when they see themselves facing foreclosure notices and bill collectors, they back off. And more critically, a middle class that looks like this, a middle class where people are falling out and into poverty, is a middle class that has less room to bring the poor up and provide them the opportunities to join the middle class. I think people who talk about the intractability of poverty now are absolutely right. There are social issues far beyond my expertise. But this is an element of it that no one's talking about. There's no place for the poor to go, and not much help coming from the middle class today compared with even a generation ago. The second point I want to make about what these data speak to me about is that I fear we're moving from a 3-class society to a 2-class society. America has always been sort of one of those perfect distributions. Some poor, some rich, and a big, solid middle class stuck right there in the middle. Americans identify with the middle class. It affects our democracy. It's part of what gives us our political stability. It's what affects our economy and drives our economy. It affects our self-identity. It affects who we are in this world. But I fear that what's happening and what these data are about is that we actually are going to see a larger upper class.
Oh my God.
We're seeing that, not just the
Pre-watch
rich,
Piker.
but the sort of rich. The ones who have those same jobs, bringing in 2 incomes, who don't get sick, who don't lose a job, who in that income volatility, who in the things that go wrong in the medical world, who don't divorce, who don't have a death in the family, who don't hit any of life's bumps, they stay with the upper group. They put away some savings, they don't get deep in debt, they do okay. And then the rest is just one long trail of underclass that stays on a constant debt treadmill. Sometimes it's a little more, sometimes it's a little less, but never out of debt.
Oh my God.
Never any real economic security. I could change my metaphors. People who are just constantly living on the edge of a cliff. Some falling over, some scratching back up a little, but never with the kind of security that for the first 3/4 of a century we associated with being middle class. I worry about what that means. I worry that the middle class, which used to mean solid and boring and not worth studying, only worth making fun of, my parents were hopelessly middle class, sort of remarks, that's kept us from seeing a problem in the middle class that threatens not just these families with children that I've identified, but really threatens the fabric of our country. We have a middle class today that is newly weakened.
So weak.
And I think what this means is that it's time to realign both our academic and our political interests and alliances to talk more about what's happening to these families. So with that, I'm going to quit and take as many questions as people have.
Jeez. That was great. Thank you, Miss Warren. Oh my God. She said the upper class is just going to get worse. And boy, oh boy, did it. This is from 2007, before the Great Recession, before the pandemic recession, before Donald Trump's presidency, before Liberation Day and the tariffs. She hit the nail on the head and said the problem is the shrinking middle class. 2007, she said it. And here we are, almost 27, about to say the same thing. The shrinking middle class is a big problem. One of the biggest problems I think conservatives have, or at least, alt-right people, is the declining fertility rates, the declining birth rates. This right here tells you why people are not having children. This right here tells you why American families are not having 3.5 kids or 2.5 kids, whatever the heck it is. It's because it's so gosh darn expensive. So expensive, and it's been expensive, and it's only getting more expensive. And oh my God, I'm sure JD Vance Republicans are going to be like, you know what, Handmaid's Tale, all the women in America, we need to fix the declining birth rates, when in reality, they just need to pay for our health care, have decent jobs again, and just rebuild the middle class. And rebuilding the middle class doesn't mean bringing down the upper class. It means lifting up the lower class. Jesus Christ. All right, everyone. We've been streaming for 3.5 hours today. I appreciate it so much. If you dropped in and participated, we're going to end the stream today. Let me play a little bit of Rally House music to end it on. But we covered a lot of good left-leaning politics, a lot of good right-leaning politics. We covered the JD Vance Pope drama. And, we covered HASAN and how the Democrats are going to deal with that. We don't know. But join me. Everyone ignored the writing on the wall, Stardust City Hut. Yeah. You know what? There was academics out here saying what we needed to hear, and we just weren't listening, or they weren't saying it in a way that was perfect for us to hear. But anyways, have a good rest of your day, everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Angelina Tucci, and this has been great. Everyone, take care. Have a good rest of your night. And remember to be kind.